theyeshiva.net.
The two dots, the Liyarakas. Instead of talking about the heavens today, we're going to start talking about the earth.
The earth.
We'll go from heaven to earth. From the mazalas to the fields and the orchards. In Torah, there's no differentiation. So let's recall the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the Mishnah. The Mishnah established that the first day of Nisan is a Rosh Hashanah for kings and a Rosh Hashanah for holidays. On Pesach is the first holiday. The first of Elul was Rosh Hashanah when it came to Meiser Behema, tithing the animals that are born. That was according to the first Tana, Reb Meir. Reb Elazar and Reb Shimon say no, it's the first of Tishrei. The first of Tishrei was a Rosh Hashanah for a few things. A Rosh Hashanah for years, which there were different interpretations what years means. If it means for non-Jewish kings, if it means for the seasons, according to Rabbi Eliezer's opinion that the world was created in Tishrei, or does it mean Yom Hadin, it's the day of judgment and reckoning for the entire year. It's also the Rosh Hashanah for Shemitah, the beginning of the sabbatical year. You start Rosh Hashanah, the first of Tishrei, and the beginning of Yovel, the Jubilee year, the 50th year. But then the Mishnah added, it's also Rosh Hashanah when it comes to saplings, little trees, Netiyah, and finally when it comes to Yerakas, to vegetables. That's the end of the first of Tishrei. The next piece is going to be the first of Shvat, which is finally the Rosh Hashanah for trees, and that concludes the Rosh Hashanahs in the Mishnah. So now the Gemarah, after discussing the previous elements of the first of Tishrei, which got us into a long discussion about Shemitah and then Yovel and saplings, and then the arguments about when the world was created and when the Mabul was, and the relationship between the two arguments, etc. So now the Gemarah goes back to the next line, the next word in the Mishnah, which is that the first of Tishrei, which we call Rosh Hashanah, is Rosh Hashanah liyirakas, Rosh Hashanah for vegetables. So again, be'echad b'tishrei Rosh Hashanah l'shanim, l'shmitin, l'yoivlus, l'netiyah, v'liyirakas, and for vegetables. Zog the Gemarah, Tana, you see the two dots in the middle of the page. Tana, there's a Braisa in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, which specifies this a little more specifically, with more detail. It says that the first of Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah for three things: liyirakas, for vegetables; lemaisris, for maisris, which we're going to explain; valenidarim, and for pledges, for promises. Now, in our Mishnah, it just said it's Rosh Hashanah for shanim, for shmitin, for yoivlus, for netiyah, for yirakas. It didn't say maisris, it didn't say nidarim. But this is what this Braisa adds to our Mishnah. So the Gemarah is going to analyze. First of all, the Gemarah says, Liyirakas my ninhu. What does it mean that Echad B'Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah Liyirakas, or Rosh Hashanah for vegetables? What do we mean? What do we have to know about vegetables? And why are we busy making a deadline of a year and the beginning of a new year for vegetables? What's the problem? So the Gemarah says, it's relevant for Meiser Yorak. It's relevant for the Meiser that we get from vegetables. And here we come to the basic idea. All produce, everything that grows from the ground in Eretz Yisrael, is obligated in Trumas and in Meisers. A certain amount of it has to be tithed and given away to those who have less. So that includes vegetables, Meiser Yerek. We also have a halacha. That is, every year gets its own meiser of that crop, of that produce of that year. In other words, it's not like I take 5 years of produce and I just give 10% of it as meiser. No, the produce of Tovshin Ayin Vav has its meiser. The produce of Tovshin Ayin Zayin has its meiser. In fact, I can't take from the produce of Tovshin Ayin Zayin and give an extra 10% of Meiser in order to fulfill my obligation on the produce of Tovshin Ayin Vav.
Tax system works the same way.
Right, yes.
Everybody tries to get the...
Yeah. You have to give the taxes from that year. The reason is because the Pasuk says in Parshas Re'eh, Aser ta'aser, we read it on Yom Tif also, Aser ta'aser, es kol tfuah zarecha yotzei asada, shana Shana. Tithe, you should tithe all the grain that comes from your seeds, that emerges from your field, year by year. Shana, shana. What's shana, shana, year by year? Meaning every year is self-contained. Shana, shana, twice. It can't just mean every year. In other words, don't skip a year. It's an obligation for every year, because then they wouldn't have to say shana, shana, twice. Shana, shana, twice means it's year by year, so to speak, year by year by year. I can't take from one year for another year. So therefore, I have to know what is the beginning of the year. Which vegetable is considered Tavshnayim Vav? Which vegetable is considered Tavshnayim Zayin? Which cauliflower, which broccoli, which tomato, which cucumber, which squash is this year and which is past year? So you need to have a Rosh Hashanah. When is that Rosh Hashanah? So that Rosh Hashanah was established as Echad B'Tishrei, that's Rosh Hashanah L'Yirakas. That's a very important idea. Frag the Gemarah, Hainu L'Maisris. If this is the case, why in the Brisa does it say L'Yirakas U'L'Maisris? This is Maisris. Our Mishnah just says L'Yirakas, which means for the Meiser of vegetables. The Brisa says it's Rosh Hashanah for vegetables and it's Rosh Hashanah for Meiser. What Rosh Hashanah for vegetables means for Meiser, that the time of the beginning of the year when it comes to halachas of Meiser is the first day of Tishrei. And for the Gemarah, no, there's a difference. Tana de Rabbanon, the Katani Dairais. The Brisa, which generally gets into specifics more than the Mishnah, generally the Mishnah is written in a more brief and concise fashion than the Brisa. So therefore, in our Mishnah, it just says Yirakas. In the Brisa, he gets into details. First, he discusses Yirakas, which is a chiyuv dirabbanon, and then Maisris, which is an obligation of Dairais. So let's see Rashi. Rashi says, really Yirakas, Maiser Yarak le'inyan chadash v'yashem. Yirakas is, as far as the Maiser, you have to give from vegetables in terms of the new and the old. What's the nigish? She'ein termin miyerek hanilkat erev Rosh Hashanah ala nilkat achar Rosh Hashanah. I can't give truma or Maisris from vegetables that I plucked, that I harvested before Rosh Hashanah, on that which I harvested after Rosh Hashanah. So you have an interesting metzias. The field is ready. The vegetables have grown to full maturity. You want to harvest them. What is the time that establishes which year it belongs to Meiser? Not when it grew. They both have grown, say, in the spring or the summer of Tavshnayim Vav. It's actually when I'm like it them, when I collect them. So this I cut off, I harvested Erev Rosh Hashanah. It's Tavshnayim Vav vegetables. This I harvested a day after Rosh Hashanah. It's Tavshnayim Zayin vegetables. And now I can't give Meiser. I can't just make one pile and just give Meiser from this group for that group. Every group is self-contained and needs its own Meiser. That's the halach. Ulin Adarim. Rashi says Lekaman Mefarish. Tana de Rabbanon v'Ktani de Raisa. Tana de Rabbanon. Hishmiacha. The Brisa tells you sheyesh Rosh Hashanah kavua le'inyan chadash v'yashan b'Meiser yerek de Rabbanon. There is an established Rosh Hashanah in terms of what's called new, and what's called not old, meaning what's called the new year and what's called the previous year. Even when it comes to the Meiser that we give from vegetables, which is only a rabbinic obligation. Here you might say, the rabbis didn't care. You don't need a Rosh Hashanah for Yirakas. You need a Rosh Hashanah for other forms of produce where you're mechuyev in Meiser and Truma min HaTorah. So here, this Shana, it's a serious thing. But if the whole obligation is only rabbinic, so you could say they relaxed. They said, okay, the main thing is we want that vegetables should also go to poor people. We want that they should have also vegetables. They saw that the society could use it, could need it. But now I care if you give from the day after Rosh Hashanah for what you did the day before Rosh Hashanah. So the Brisa says no. And our Mishnah says no. There's a Rosh Hashanah also for Yirakas they established. Zok Rashi, v'hader tana meiser dagan she'af lo yom kavua l'chadash v'yashan shalai. And then the Brisa adds meisers. What's meisers? Not Yirakas. Meisers dagan, grain. Grain. Wheat, barley, spelt, oats, rye. Dagan. Here, there's already a Meiser min HaTorah. Here the Torah says you have to give Meiser and Truma. This also has a specific day for the new and the old. And it's the same day. It's Be'echad B'Tishrei. What do we see from this Gemarah? A very interesting thing, that all Meiser from vegetables is not biblically obligated. So when we say that the Torah obligates a Jew who has a field or an orchard in Eretz Yisrael, so there's an obligation on the soil. It's called mitzvahs hatluyas ba'aretz. On the soil is holy. And what grows out of the soil, all food that grows out of it, gidul of min haaretz, as long as it's edible, it's preserved, and it's eaten by people, it's mechuyev and trumas and maasros. There's an exception to that, and that is vegetables. It includes all grains, it includes fruits, it includes kidneys, beans, legumes, it excludes vegetables. The rabbis were the ones who introduced Ma'aseh Yarek. I should just add for the full picture that there is a big machlokes, as the Minchas Chinuch says, Nechleku Avos Ha'olam, the fathers of the world argued, if all fruits are also biblically obligated in Trumas and Maasros. Yes, so the Rambam holds all fruits are obligated bin HaTorah. Like the Gemarah says here, only vegetables are excluded. All vegetables are out, all fruits are in. Every single fruit, from a peach to an orange, to a plum, to an apple, or any other fruit, it's all mechuyev in Trumas and Maasros. And when we say Trumas and Maasros, that's a whole list. 2% has to go to the Kohen. After you're done with that, 10% called Meiser Rishon, has to go to the Levi. After you're done with that, in year 1, 2, 4, 5, 10% has to go to Yerushalayim to be eaten there, or conferred on money, and the money taken to Yerushalayim and the fruits bought there and eaten there, which was an opportunity for every Jew to spend time in Yerushalayim and of course also help the Jerusalem economy. And then you have years 3 and 6 when you substituted that later 10% with 10% going to poor people. And then you were done. And then you were done and everything else was yours. So when it comes to fruits, the Rambam holds all fruits is mechuyev min HaTorah. The only thing that's rabbinic is vegetables. That's the view of the Rambam. Including grain is min HaTorah, all kidneys, beans, rice, all the what we call legumes, the families of legumes, all min HaTorah, all fruits min HaTorah besides vegetables. The shit of Rashi is that that's not the case. When it comes to fruits, there are exceptions. In fact, it's the other way around. Most fruits are also like vegetables. They're obligated only with the Rabbanan, besides the fruits that the Torah specifies. The Torah says, Dagan, Tirosh, and Yitzhar. Dagan is grain, Tirosh is wine, grapes, and Yitzhar is oil, which would mean olives. So grapes are vine, and olive trees, they're mechuyev and trumas and maasros min HaTorah. However, all other fruits, the regular peach, the regular orange, the regular kiwi, these are the papaya, the sabra, whatever it is, any fruit that you would like to mention, are only midirabanan. So therefore, when it says Yerakos, it's actually, Yerakos is carte blanche because it's all the Yerakos. When it comes to fruits, according to Rashi and Tosfos, actually, there's also quite a leniency with most fruits besides those 2 types of fruits, which are grapes and olives. The shit of the Rambam, however, is not that way. He holds all fruits are mechuyev min HaTorah or midirabanan. There is one shitta, we're not going to analyze it right now, it's interesting to mention, it's known as the shitta of the Samag, Sefer Mitzvahs Gadol and the Yereim, who hold that vegetables are midirabanan, besides Ma'aser Sheni. Ma'aser Sheni, even vegetables are min HaTorah. So when the Gemarah says that vegetables are midirabanan, it's only when it comes to Truma, when it comes to Ma'aser Rishon, when it comes to Ma'aser Ani, when it comes to Ma'aser Sheni, they hold that even the Samag and the Yereim, that even Yerakos is a chiyuv minha, even a chiyuv min HaTorah. That's a very interesting shitta which has stirred up a lot of debate why you would say it. I'll call upon him. So when the Braisa says Rosh Hashanah liYerakas u'Lamaasros, it's talking about 2 different categories. One is midirabanan and one is min HaTorah. Zag the Gemarah v'lisna d'oraisa b'reisha. Doesn't it make sense that the Braisa should first list the Maasros that's a chiyuv min HaTorah? So it should have said Rosh Hashanah l'Maasros v'liYerakas. Torah comes before the Rabbanan. Why does it say liYerakas u'Lamaasros? Our Mishnah, it's not a question because in our Mishnah it only says liYerakas, but in the Braisa it's a question. And for the Gemarah, Aidi de chavivele akdema. Sometimes the Tana says first that which is precious for him. Because this is more precious, this din, that Yerakos is mechuyev and Ma'aser has a special chavivus and has a special preciousness. So even though technically, academically, Torah comes first, then the Rabbanan, but Akdem Alei, he brings it first. Why would this have a chavivus for him? Because 2 things. First of all, it's a chiddush, it's a novelty, because it doesn't say in Torah. And second of all, there's the famous Gemarah Masechta Avodah Zarah, that the Jewish people say, Arevim alai divrei soifrim, ki toivim doidecha miyoyin. In Shashirim it says, your love, toivim doidecha, your love is more precious to me than all the wines. So Chazal explained, the Gemarah Navodah Zara, that the Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people tell Hashem, Arevim alai divrei soifrim, yoiser miyena shel Torah. It's sweet for me, divrei doidecha, the words of those who love you, more even than the wine of Torah. There's a special chavivus to divrei soifrim. Why is there a special chavivus to divrei soifrim? L'chayra, it's only at best an interpretation and an addition in order to create fences or to add. How can it be more precious than Torah? The pshat is, it's brought because even though obviously the obligation in Torah is always more intense than the obligation when it comes to divrei soifrim, you can't compare, and the penalties are different. This is biblically obligated by Hashem directly, and this is from the rabbi, so you can't compare it in terms of stringencies and leniencies and a suffix derais and a suffix derabbanan, etc. But there's a certain quality to mitzvahs derabbanan that has a certain chavivus, an affection that doesn't exist in mitzvahs derais. To give an example, in a relationship, I know we're not holding at that stage of the day yet. It's a little too early for this, but in a relationship, there's always two components. There's somebody asking you to do something for them, and you do it. And that's, of course, a very beautiful thing, and it's really the essentials of a relationship. I ask you for something. You're a good friend, especially a spouse, or whatever the relationship is, a rebbe and a student, so you go ahead and do it. But there's a deeper relationship, and that is you don't have to ask for it. You could just hint. The fact that you hint, and the person already picks up on the hint and goes ahead and does it, this demonstrates a deeper form of a relationship. Because of two reasons. First of all, they understand your hints. Not everybody understands a hint. They understand a remez. Number two, they're not looking for excuses. If you're looking for excuses, then you say, how am I supposed to know what you mean? Next time, say it clearly. I'd know what you mean. The fact that you're not looking for excuses, even a hint is enough, is because you want to be there for the person. So the Gemarah says in Tainas Daf Tes about the Rabbanan lekem midi deloy remizi boiraisa. Everything of the rabbis is hinted to in Torah. So a mitzvah says in Torah, the Rebbeinu Shalom asks the Jew, he says, I need you to put on tefillin. I want you to say Shema. I want you to keep Shabbos. I want you to have a mezuzah. I want you to do Yom Kippur. I want you to shake a lulav. Whatever the mitzvah says in Torah is. Mitzvah says the Rabbanan is lekem midi deloy remizi boiraisa. It's Knesset Yisrael, so to speak, detected with their antennas, with their soul's antennas, the remez, the hint of Hashem. So it has a special chavivus, yoisem yeina shel Torah. So when the Tana has to say the two, it says first yirakas and then ma'asos, because this is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Zog the Gemarah v'Tana didan, and our Tana only says yirakas. Why? Tana d'Rabbanan kol shekein d'Horaisa. He says in our Mishnah that Rosh Hashanah of Tishrei, the first Rosh Hashanah l'yirakas. So certainly Maisris that I'm in Torah have a Rosh Hashanah. Ma'adach. Maisris that only the Rabbanan, vegetables, have a Rosh Hashanah. And you can't separate from one year for another year. Certainly min Torah, that's the source of it all, certainly has a Rosh Hashanah. So our Mishnah is trying to be more brief, so therefore he just says Yirakas, and automatically you will learn Maisris. Rashi says, V'tana didon, the tunnel Yirakas will a tunnel of Maisris, Tana de Rabbanan Vashmin, and the Yom Kavualai. We learn that even a rabbinic Meiser has an established day. Certainly, those vegetables, those fruits and that grain that you have to give Menatayda, certainly has a Rosh Hashanah. Shana will apply for them. Now you're asking a good shaila. He says, okay, the Kol Shekain is that it has a Rosh Hashanah. You're not going to give rabbinic Meiser Rosh Hashanah, not biblical Meiser Rosh Hashanah, when the whole idea of Rosh Hashanah comes from a Chumash, Shana. But you're asking, how do you know the date of Rosh Hashanah? You still need a date. The Brisa tells us a date. Echad B'Tishri, the Mishnah doesn't say a date. Maybe the Meiser Minat Torah has a different Rosh Hashanah, has a different date. That's the question. We see by fruits, it's not Tishrei at all. It's Shvat, either Rish Chodesh Shvat or Tu B'Shvat, B'Shamay or B'Silo. And here he doesn't. The Mishnah ignores the date. So this question the Turei Even asks. The Shagas Aryeh in his commentary on Masechta Rosh Hashanah called Turei Even, he asks this question, and he answers and he says that the answer of the Gemarah is as follows. Then when the Mishnah says that Echad B'Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah for Yerakas, it means Kol Shekain, that for grain, which has been a Torah, the Rosh Hashanah is Echad B'Tishrei. Why? Because if the Meiser of Torah, if in the Meiser of Torah, Rosh Hashanah would have been on another day, so then the rabbis would have also established Rosh Hashanah for vegetables on that day. We have a cloud, the Gemarah says in many places, Psachim Kol, the Tikkun, the Rabbanon, Kein Daraisa Tikkun. The rabbis made their takanas, but they always followed the pattern and the structure of Torah. It wasn't coming in a vacuum, we're going to create a whole new set. It was always following the structure of Torah. So that's what the Turei Even says. If it would have been another Rosh Hashanah, the Yerakas would have also been another Rosh Hashanah. Since they established Echad B'Tishrei, wasn't out of the blue. It's because grain is mechuyev in Meiser, of course, and what is the date? The cutoff time for the new year would be Echad B'Tishrei. If the Mishnah, on the other hand, would have written only Meiser, you would say it's Meiser and not Torah. And by vegetables, you wouldn't even say there's a Rosh Hashanah. Maybe there's no Rosh Hashanah. You could separate from one year for another year. Another interesting question is, the Gemarah usually, on the other Rosh Hashanahs, asked, Minah Namili. How do you know that this day is Rosh Hashanah? When it comes here, the Gemarah doesn't ask that question. How do you know that Rosh Hashanah for vegetables, and really for grain, as we see, and for not for fruits it's not, but for vegetables, for grain is Echad B'Tishrei? Maybe not. Like, why Echad B'Tishrei? It's not like it grows right then.
What do we consider potato, the things that go under the ground, roots? Is that considered
Yerakas. Yeah, Boire Pri Adama. Yeah, I believe, yeah. So that's an interesting question. The Gemarah doesn't address the source for this. So Tosfos writes already earlier on Daf Ches Amud Aleph, and the Ram says it also, and that is that the Gemarah doesn't have to write it because it's already included in what the Gemarah said earlier. The Gemarah asked earlier, why do we say that Rosh Hashanah of Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah for Shemitah? Why is that? Maybe Rosh Chodesh Nisan should be the beginning of Shemitah. So the answer is, it was with the Gzeirah Shava. By Shemitah it says, Daf Ches Amud Aleph, the Gemarah said Gzeirah Shava. What was it? Daf Ches Amud Beis, I think. Rosh Hashanah l'Shmitin. So the Gemarah says, it says in Parshas Bahar, B'Shana Hashviyis Shabbos Shabbosin Yiyeh La'aretz. On the 7th year, you should have a sabbatical. The word Shana Hashviyis. You would think the word Shana in Chumash is used a lot. It's not. It's very rare. You have it in one more place. You have it in two more places. And that is by Eretz Yisrael. It says in Parshas Eikev, Eretz Hashe'ein Hashem Elokecha. Eretz Hashe'ein Hashem Elokecha b'mereishis Hashana v'ad achris Shana. Hashem's eyes are in the Holy Land from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. What is over there the beginning of the year? The Gemarah explained that it's Tishrei. Mereishis Hashanah wasn't mean from the beginning of the year till you say Hashem's eyes are always on Eretz Yisrael. Tamid. If it's from the beginning of the year till the end of the year, so it's always. So just say Tamid. So the Gemarah learned out earlier, Daf Ches, that Reishis Hashanah is talking about a specific time when the year begins. And that's, so to speak, a new reckoning, a whole new cheshbon. When is that? The first of Tishrei, Yom Hadin, which we learned out from Tehillim, Tikku b'chodesh Shev b'kasel yom chageinu k'choik l'Yisrael u'mish b'tel b'kayakov. It's also brought in Sfarim that Mereishis is usually spelled Mem, Reish, Aleph, Shin, Yud, Saf. Besides in that pasuk, it's spelled missing an Aleph. Mereishis is missing an Aleph, which is the same letters like Tishrei. So the way it's spelled brings out that Mereishis actually means Tishrei also. Besides what the Gemarah explains, that's the beginning of the year because it's Yom Hadin. So we learn out Shana from Shviyis, from Shana and Parshas Eikev, and we say just like Shana there is Tishrei, Shana by Shemitah is also Tishrei. There's one more time it says Shana in Parshas Bay. But the Gemarah says we don't want to learn it out from there rather than from Eretz Yisrael because over there it's a year that's made up of months. We're focusing on the months over there. Rather focus on the year, like by Shemitah. It doesn't talk about months; it talks about the year. So he says, if so, since it says also here, Aser to Aser is called Tvuah Zarecha, Hayotzei Asad is Shana Shana. So because it says Shana Shana, we learned the Shana from the same Gzeirah Shava. What's the Gzeirah Shava from Tishrei? Mereishis Hashana by Eretz Yisrael, and therefore we know that Meiser Dagon also happens by Echad B'Tishrei. The Gemara doesn't even mention it, so you have to say that we assume, since the previous sugya spoke about Shmitin, which is the same day, and that was the source for Shemitah, so it could be the same din, the same source for that. That's what Tosfos Tain is on Daf Ches Omer Aleph. He doesn't say for sure, he says V'Shema. He says V'Shema, maybe this is the source. Aset Hasher is called for Zerecha Yetz Asad Shana Shana. You learn out Shana Shana from Tishrei. He brings one more possibility, Taisvus over there, and that is Daf Chesam and Aleph, and that is that Meiser depends on Shemitah. In other words, the Jews became a Chuyev in Meiser once they became a Chuyev, once they started to count the Shemitah years. And since Shemitah begins on Echad B'Tishrei, so since Meiser is dependent on the Chalois of Shemitah, so therefore it follows the same structure. When Shemitah begins, you're going to start Meiser a different month. The whole din of Shemitah didn't begin. Shemitah begins. The count of Shemitah begins in Tishrei, year to year, 7 years. So that's the second word, but perhaps the Gemara didn't have to explain that Meiser automatically follows the same pattern of Shemitah, and Shemitah we already explained that it starts in the first of Tishrei and why. Sagt the Gemara weiter. The listener Meiser. The term that the Braisa used was Rosh Hashanah liYirakas and Rosh Hashanah liMeisris. It should have said Meiser, because actually you're talking about not Meiser Yirakas, you're talking about a specific type of Meiser, which is Meiser Dagan, the Meiser of grain. Why does it say Meisris Lashon Rabim in the plural? And for the Gemarah, Echad Meiser Behema v'Echad Meiser Dagan. Because in Meiser itself, there's two types. There's the Meiser you give from the Behema. There's the tithing of the animals.
We have Meiser Behema before.
And we have Meiser Dagan. And this Braisa holds like Reb Shimon, who holds that a Shoshana of Meiser Behema is also Be'echad B'Tishrei.
Two times, no?
Yeah, Shimon and Rebbe Lezer, yeah. So therefore, the one taka, the first shitta was that Meiser Behema is Rosh Chodesh Elul. But then you had Rebbe Lezer and Reb Shimon who hold that it's Be'echad B'Tishrei. So this Braisa holds the same way. So he says Liyirakas, but also L'Meisris, plural. Because it's not one type of Meiser, it's Meiser Dagan and Meiser Behema. It's both Be'echad B'Tishrei. That's why it says Meisris. Meisris. Zog the Gemarah weiter, v'lisne yerek. It should say yerek, vegetable. Why Yirakas Lashon Rabim? And for the Gemarah, trei gavne yerek. There's two types of vegetables. The Tanam we learned in the Mishnah Masechta Meisres. Yerek hanegot. There's vegetables that the common practice is you want to tie together in a bundle. So then it becomes mechuyev and meiser misheya aget. From the time that you bundle it together, that's considered gmar malachta. That's considered you finished the work. Remember that everything that grows, there's two things. There's the time from when it becomes mechuyev and meiser, and for that you need gmar malachta. You have to finish processing it. It should be done. It's not just enough to harvest it. You have to process it. It should be ready. That's called gmar malachta. Different fruits, different vegetables, different grains. What's called gmar malachta. So he says when it comes to vegetables, if it's negot, if you want to bundle it, so then Mishia Agate. That's called Gmar Malacha. And from that time, you can't eat from it even as a snack. Till that time, you can eat from it because you're not Mechuyev and Meiser yet. Midirabbanan, you can't eat from it a permanent meal, only Achilas Arei, a snack. But once Gmar Malacha happens, now you can't eat from it at all. The Eshenoi Negot, if it's not a vegetable that you want to bundle up, so then Mishia Maliyas Hakli. The moment you fill up the vessel with the vegetables, that's called Gmar Malacha.
Well, Rashi is the word saying from the year to Nilkat. Doesn't mean a Nilkat, it means a Negat. That's the Shiloh. It's Nilkat. In other words, what's the...
Which Rashi talking about?
Talking about Lirokus.
Oh, no. It's two, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's two separate things.
Right.
One
It has
is...
to be a Basal Akita, Lagabi
Yes.
the year.
The Gabi the year, it depends when you harvested it,
Right.
when you plucked it. That's the year. In other words, let's say I cut it off in the month of Sivan.
The Tvua becomes Mechuyev, I am not
Atazah. The moment I cut it off, that's the year of the Meiser. But I may not be Mechuyev in it till I finish processing it. Right, yeah, exactly. Just like when it comes to grain. If you're taking it home, it has to see the face of your house in order to be Mechuyev. But what's the year? The year is the year when it was growing. Over there, it's when it grew a third, not when I harvested it. So there's two separate things. There's when the tvua, which year it belongs to, when you're going to become a chuyev and meiser. But then there's the question when you become a chuyev and meiser. Once you become Mechuyev Meiser, I don't count this year, even if I'm Mechuyev Meiser only now. I count the year when it became Mechuyev Meiser, when it grew in that particular year. So here also, the Yerukas become Mechuyev Meiser after they're processed. And vegetables don't need a lot of processing. You put it in a keli, that's called Gbar Malacha. What are you going to do with vegetables? It's ready to go. You have a beet, so it's ready to go. You put it in a keli, of course you have to peel it, sometimes you have to cook it, whatever, but it's ready to go. Tvua is more. Tvua, you need a whole processing. I mean, there's everything in Masechta Shabbos. There's the harvesting, and then there's the threshing, and then there's the winnowing, and there's the boirer, the selecting, etc. So you need, and then there's miruach, smoothing it out, making a pile. If you're selling it, that's enough. If you're taking it to your house, it has to see your house. You're a pnei abayis. When it comes to your ruckus, either it's bundles or you fill up the keli, and it becomes mechuyev and meiser. But the year is still when you harvested it. That's the year. So since there's different types of vegetables, so that's why the Mishnah doesn't say yerek, the Mishnah says yerukas. Tana Rabbanon, Rashi says yerek hanegod shedarkei ba'agudos. The common practice in these vegetables is you keep them in bundles. Mishia eged have it goyner l'maiser. Once you're ma'aged, mishia aged, once you bundle it together, that's goyner. Goyner means the silo. That's called, you took it into the silo for meiser. You're not allowed to eat from it even as a snack until you give meiser. Goyrin basically means the place where you store grain. It's called a silo, right? Goyrin. Generally, the chiyuv in trumas and meiseris is once the grain hits the silo, once it hits the goyrin, in other words, it's processed completely and it's ready to be done whatever you want to do with it. You want to grind it, you want to sell it, so it's called, you put it into the goyrin, into the silo. So here also, what's called the silo when it comes to vegetables, it means when you bundle it up. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to Braisa. It's a very interesting scenario. Liket yerek erev Rosh Hashanah. You harvested vegetables the day before Rosh Hashanah, ad shaloi tovei hashemesh, before sunset. V'chazar v'liket mishetovei hashemesh, top of Yud Beis Amid Beis. And then you continue to harvest vegetables once sunset happens. Yes. It has to be through a non-Jew, because it's Rosh Hashanah. We don't harvest vegetables on Rosh Hashanah. Tosfos on top, Yud Beis Amid Beis says, Yerushalmi mukila benachrin. Yerushalmi says you're talking about a non-Jew. So now what happens?
The non-Jew, there wasn't in Jewish fields.
Yeah, the non-Jew harvested the vegetables. So you have vegetables from before Rosh Hashanah, after Rosh Hashanah. Ein terminu ma'asrin mizalza.
Shouldn't have to do it later, so there was no.
Yeah, you don't give truma and meiser from this group on that group. Because you're not allowed to give truma or meiser, not from the new vegetables of this year, for the old one of the previous year, and not from the old ones from the last year on the new ones of this year. So if I have 100 pounds of one vegetable before Rosh Hashanah, 100 pounds of another, of the same vegetable maybe, or the same field after Rosh Hashanah, I can't group them together and just give trumas and maisers from one for the other. What do you mean?
You can mix the amounts, or
After that, you can mix them together. I don't care. Mitzvah trumas and maestros. Each one needs its own trumas and maestros.
you have to give 10% anyway.
You give 10, whatever it is. Truma is 2%. Meiser Rishon is 10%. Meiser Ani and Meiser Sheni also 10%. What's the difference?
What's left over? I mean, it's not a 10%, the same 100.
That's the cheshbon. You might say, what's the difference? What's the difference if I give 20% of all the broccoli that I harvested after Rosh Hashanah? Yeah, or I give 10% of that broccoli and 10% of this broccoli. What's the difference? It's the same broccoli. But that's the chiddush. Every year is self-contained. Shana Shana. Like you said, just like by taxes.
That's it. You take a deduction this year, you can't use it for last year.
Shana Shana. This year has its own chiyuv. Its own chiyuv. If I take broccoli from Tavshin Ayin Zayin, even though it was just a difference of a few hours, I was doing it till Shkia. So Rosh Hashanah, I got to go to shul. The guy says, I'll finish it up, right? So it was literally done before Shkia and after Shkia, a few minutes. He says, no, this is Tavshin Ayin involved, this is Tavshin Ayin Zayin. It's two different chiyuvim.
There's no IRS to stop you.
But here it gets a little more interesting. Im Hoysa Shniya. If Erev Rosh Hashanah was not the first year of Shemitah, It was the second year of Shemitah. Nechneses l'shlishis. So the Rosh Hashanah now, remember, Shemitah begins on Echad B'Tishrei. Took me into the third year. So now you have an interesting Maisa. It's not just you have to give Maisa from both groups. It's a different Maisa. Shniya, Maisa Rishon, Maisa Sheni. The vegetables of the second year, you have to tithe 10% that goes to the Levi, and 10% that you have to travel to Yerushalayim and eat it there. Shlishis, the other vegetables that were harvested after Rosh Hashanah, Meiser Rishon and Meiser Ani. 10% goes to the Levi, and 10% goes to poor people, and you completely have no obligation to go to Yerushalayim. It's not even holy. It goes to poor people, and you're good to go. So it's a whole different category. It's not stam. If it gets mixed up, yeah, you have an issue because you have to give truma from each year separately. If it gets mixed up, you're actually giving the wrong meisers. Because part of the vegetables belong in Yerushalayim and part of the vegetables belong going to poor people, because year 1 and 2 was Meiser Sheni, year 1, 2, 4, 5 was Meiser Sheni, year 3, 6 was Meiser Ani instead of Meiser Sheni, year 7 there was no Meiser or Truma because the fields are ownerless and has free access to everybody, animals, poor people, rich people, friends, not friends, Jews, Gentiles, etc. Zog the Gemarah weiter, Minan Emili. Rashi says, Shniya, first Rashi, and Yud Beis and Beis. Mashenilkad b'shana Shniya shel Shmita. Whatever you harvest in the second year of Shmita, Meiser Rishon l'Levi, or Meiser Sheni b'Yerushalayim, or Mashenilkad b'shana Shlishis is Meiser Rishon or Meiser Ani. Zog the Gemarah, Minan Emili. How do we know this? How do we know this chiddush that on the third year you go from Meiser Sheni and you switch to Meiser Ani? How do we know this chiddush? The fact is as follows. What's the question? The fact that you have to give truma every year to the kohen is not a question how we know. The fact that you have to give Meiser Rishon every year to the Levi is not a question how we know. The Torah says you have to do it, so there's no reason to make a distinction between one year and another year. The fact that the third year you have to give Meiser Ani says clearly in the pasuk, as we will see, that on the third year you have to give your tithing to the ger, to the converts, to the orphans, to the widows, which basically represents poor people who usually didn't have a source of revenue and income. So there's no question that the third year you have to give Meiser Ani. The question is, what's the source to say that on the third year Meiser Sheni stops and Meiser Ani substitutes Meiser Sheni? That's what Rashi says. Minan Emili, the b'shlishis ein noyeg ba Meiser Sheni. He's medayik. That's the diuk. It's not a question on everything. How do we know that the Meiser Sheni you have to quit on the third year? You don't have to give it. Like it's a psachidish. So he says, doesn't say, there's no pasuk that clearly says all this. Year 1 and 2 you do this, year 3 you do this. You have to learn it out. Omer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, a very interesting diuk. The diuk is, we have in Parshas Kisavai a mitzvah known as Vidui Meiser, the confession of Meiser. Basically, the pasuk says, let's quote the pasuk. Ki sechala laser eskol maser tfu oscha bashana hashlishis nasa meiser. When you finish tithing, all the meiser, all the tithing of your grain on the third year, which is the year of meiser. Now, right away, our ear is perked. What do you mean? It's the year of meiser. Every year is the year of meiser. He calls the third year shnasa meiser. And he continues the pasuk. V'nasata, I'm going to read the pasuk. V'nasata la Levi, la Ger, la Yosem, v'almona, v'achlu v'sharecha v'saveya. And you give it to the Levi, who's a poor man usually. The Ger, the Yosem, the almona, poor people. And they eat, and they're satiated. So when you finish all this, the Torah says, you have a mitzvah to basically do what's called vidui meiser. And that is that a person had to make sure that all the trumas and meises from all the 3 years were out of the house. If he kept it in his pantry, he has to send it out. He has to give it to the right people. You know, sometimes people leave stuff in their basements, so you have to get rid of it all. It's called beer, the obligation of beer. And then on the fourth year, Pesach time, there was a mitzvah called vidui meiser, where a Jew would basically verbally confess and say, Bi'arti HaKodesh min habayis. I eliminated, I sent out, like beer chametz, here it's not chametz, it's kedusha. Bi'arti HaKodesh min habayis, I sent it out of the house, I gave it to the people that I had to give it to, and he says, Asisi kechol asher tzivi sani, I did everything you asked me to do. I forgot nothing. I did everything that you wanted me to do. Look down and bless the Jewish people. This is called Vidui Meiser, and basically the time for it was the month of Nisan of the 4th year. After the 3rd year is over, including all the residues of the 3rd year, in the month of Nisan you had to make sure that everything of the first 3 years was out of your house. Give it to whoever you have to give it. Bring it to Yerushalayim, or you have to bring it to Yerushalayim. And then there is this confession that you do that. What's the diuk here? The 3rd year is called Shnas HaMaiser. Why Shnas HaMaiser? Shana she'ein ba'ela maiser echad. This is a year where you only have one of the maisers that you had in the previous year. In other words, even though all the years are called Shnas HaMaiser, he calls it Shnas HaMaiser. Maiser Lashon Yachid, in the singular. Meaning that it's Shana she'ein ba'ela maiser echad. It's a Shana that the maisers that you had previous years, it's reduced to one maiser. What do you mean it's reduced to one meiser? You don't have only one meiser in the 3rd year. You have Truma, you have Meiser Rishon, and you have Meiser Ani. You're right. But from the 2 meisers that you had in the previous year, every year, year 1 and 2, now you're down only to 1. HaKeitzad, what does this mean? Meiser Rishon, you give to the Levi. Or Meiser Ani, and you also give Meiser Ani. How do I know you give Meiser Ani? Because it says clearly in the pasuk you have to give it to the Ger and the Yosem and the Alman. I can't argue. But Meiser Sheni you bottle. Meiser Sheni gets nullified. Why? Because it says Shnas HaMeiser. This is the year of Meiser. What means the year of Meiser? It's the year that from the 2 Meisers you've been giving every year, you're down to 1. Which one? Meiser Sheni you take out and you put in Meiser Ani. You have to put in Meiser Ani because it says you have to give the Ger, Yosem and Alman. That's not a question. Why do you take out Meiser Sheni? Because it's called Shnas HaMeiser. So Rashi Shana Sheini Noyig Ba'ela Echad Min HaMeiseris Shenagu B'Shtei Shanam Shalofanai. Year 1 and 2 you had 2, and now you're down to 1. HaKeitzad Meiser Rishon you think it Erech Shnas Adheina. Meiser Rishon you continue giving. Or Meiser Ani Yosef B'Mokem Meiser Sheni. And instead of Meiser Sheni, in lieu of it, you give Meiser Ani. K'diksiv the pasuk says L'Ger L'Yosem Ula Almana. What is that? What's the common denominator of a convert, an orphan, and a widow? It's basically poverty. That's the common denominator. The widow had nobody to support her. The orphan did not have a family to support him. The ger doesn't come in with property and assets and nepotism and families and so on and so forth.
It wasn't even they didn't used to.
Who Meiser Ani? This is Meiser Ani. Frag the Gemarah 1 second. Why are you discriminating against Meiser Sheni? Maybe discriminate against Meiser Rishon. Oyene elaf Meiser Sheni nami bottle. Why don't you say Shnas HaMaiser have a better geschmack of art? Shnas HaMaiser means the year when you give 1 Meiser, Meiser Ani. You're telling me alumnus. It's a year that you give 2 Meisers. It's called Shnas HaMaiser because Gabi, the first 2, you're down to 1. Although you're going to be up to 2 because you're going to add Meiser Ani. Why don't you say Shnas HaMaiser means literally it's the year of 1 Meiser. Shnas HaMaiser, every year you give more than 1, and now you give only 1 because Meiser Ani takes the place of everything. In other words, why don't you eliminate also Meiser Rishon? Why do you eliminate only Meiser Sheni? And you can of course ask also, the Gemarah doesn't have to ask it because it's already included. Why, when you have to choose between the 2 Meisers, does Meiser Sheni go and Meiser Rishon remains? Even if you have to choose, why not leave Meiser Sheni and take away Meiser Rishon? But the question is really much more than this. Why not take away both? Shnas HaMaiser means 1. And for the Gemarah, Talmud Loimar, in Parshas Korach, when Hashem speaks about the gifts that are given to the Kohen, he says, El halavim tedaber v'amarta aleihem. Speak to the Levites and tell them, Ki sikhu me'ez b'nei Yisrael es ha'maiser asher nasati lochem me'ita b'nachal aschem. When you'll take from the Jewish people the maiser, the tithing, that I have given you from them, b'nachal aschem, instead of your nachala. Nachala basically means assets of the land, inheritances. A nachala means something that you inherit, you bequeath in terms of real estate, solid property, karka, earth. So the Leviim did not own property in Eretz Yisrael as the regular Jew did. The Kohanim did not do, and the Leviim. They had designated cities where they had to, in order to be able to live, but these were like the projects, so to speak. These were not the projects, but these were housings and cities that the Torah gave the Leviim as a place to live. But they didn't have an ownership in property. in terms of selling and buying. Why? Because real estate consumes you, and the Kohanim and the Leviim, they were the spiritual representatives of the Jewish people. They served in the Beis HaMikdash, and even when they didn't serve in the Beis HaMikdash, most of them didn't serve a whole year in the Beis HaMikdash, they learned, they taught, they mentored. The Torah did not want them to be entrenched. Huh? Achalke b'Yakov. Achalke b'Yakov, afitzim b'Yisrael. Huh? Consumed? Consume means, real estate is real estate. Real estate. You have menuchas hanefesh? No, so
It's consumed.
it's yeah, it's just the way of the world. It's the way of the world. The Kohanim and the Leviim remained already in Mitzrayim. They remained, so to speak, teachers. So they had to have that serenity. So the Torah says, "We'll provide you with your needs. We'll give you truma. We'll give you ma'aseh." But it's a certain way of life, because basically you don't have anything that is your own. Everything you're dependent. Trumas, Maisers, Maiserishin, Truma for the Kohen, and Matnas Kohuna, whatever they got. So he says this is instead of your Nachala. The Maisers, Me'itchem be'Nachalaschem, this is in lieu of your Nachala, of your real estate. I once saw a Vart, I saw one of the Svarim, on his deathbed, before he passed away, Yaakov tells Shimon and Levi, Shimon and Levi, Achem, and he criticizes them, Ba'apam harguish, b'tzoynam ikru shoyr. Achalkim b'Yaakov, he curses their wrath. Achalkim b'Yaakov v'afitzim b'Yisrael. I will scatter them among the Jewish people. So Rashi brings that Shimon and Levi became melamdim. The melamdim by Klal Yisrael. Soifrim and melamdim. Teachers, because teachers had to go to every city, every yishuv. So they were the teachers, and they would teach. So they were all over the place. So al pi pshat you learn that it was a negative thing, just scatter them all over the place. Don't have them together. I once saw a beautiful vart. Yaakov speaks about Shimon and Levi's passion. They were very, very passionate. They came to Shechem, they took on a whole city. They came to Yosef, they took on Yosef. They were extremely passionate. Passion could go in different ways. But the klal, what he's saying is, who am I going to make teachers of the Jewish people? People with passion. A teacher who teaches children has to be full of passion. If he's passionate about it, if he's emotional about it, if he's connected to it, you can inspire people. If you have no passion, you can't inspire people. So therefore he says that the meiser is in lieu of the nachala. So this is an interesting chiddush. Hikishi akosav l'nachala. So the meiser that the Levi is getting, the Torah compares to a nachala, to a Yerusha. Ma nachala, just like an inheritance, ein lehefsek, has no hefsek. You don't say, on year number 3, you're not a Yodesh anymore. Nachal is permanent. Once you're a Yodesh, it's always. Af Maiserishin ain't like hefsek. So Maiserishin is like a Nachal, it has no hefsek, and therefore it applies to all years. So therefore we don't say Shnas HaMaiser means only Maiser Oni and not Maiser Sheni and not Maiserishin. Maiserishin remains a constant because it's like a Nachala. It's instead of a nachala. Nachala ein lehefsek, meiser rishon ein lehefsek. That's the meiser of the Levian. Meiser sheni, on the other hand, gotta go because the 3rd year he calls shnas hameiser, and that's inaccurate. Every year is shnas hameiser. It means it's the year of one meiser because you cut off one of the two. Which one do you cut off? You cut off meiser sheni. That's how we know it. Now here you may ask a question, and that is, you're saying that meiser rishon doesn't have a hefsek. That's not mamash true. On the 7th year, Meiser Rishon does have a hefsek. It's not like a nachala. A nachala that you inherit, right? Doesn't have a hefsek. But Meiser Rishon does have a hefsek. On the 7th year, you don't have to give Meiser Rishon. But l'chayre, the answer to this is pasha.
It's the same problem you have with nachala that you give me the klai. So
on Shemitah, your nachala also has a hefsek, right? It's not really my field. I mean, it's my field in the sense that the earth still belongs to me. It's not like somebody could go into the field. But I can't collect the rent. I can't collect the rent. So in some ways you could say my nachal also has a hefsek. It's not fully mine, let's put it that way. The produce does not belong to me. I share ownership with it, with the entire Jewish people, not only with the Jewish people, with the whole world and with all the animals too. Everyone has rights. So when you say ein lo hefsek, the nachal also has a hefsek on Shemitah. My Sirishin is not going to be worse than the nachala. Everything has a hefsek. In other words, Shemitah is a time when everything becomes ownerless. But in the years when you do have the nachala, When I'm a Yisrael, I do have a nachla, he says, oh, the Levi has to get Meiser Rishon. That's his nachla. So don't tell me on year 3 he's not getting Meiser Rishon. On years when there is a nachla, that's l'chayda the pshat.
In biblical times.
Turei Evan asks us, he struggles with this, huh?
In biblical times, it comes to the Gemarah, did the system work?
Yeah, of course it worked. Yeah. These were the tzedakah institutions that were.
Saying the time of the Gemarah, the time of the.
No, because he doesn't work today. He's collecting. He doesn't work.
No, Shemitah is not dependent on the Beis Hamikdash. Truma is not dependent on the Beis Hamikdash. Depends on Eretz Yisrael.
So what are the Leviim eating in Shemitah? Yeah.
What everybody's
What
eating.
everybody else eats.
Everybody could put away. They can't put away because they don't have.
They go to the field. They cut.
You could take, what you know, so what
It was
put
hefker.
away and use it until there's not for the behemoths, then you have to take out what you have.
The owner, yeah.
Right. You could- So the Mamona is there, you're in the same boat.
So Rashi, I af Meiser Rishon ye bottle. Ushnas ha-Meiser chad ka'amar. Maybe Shnas ha-Meiser means literally you only give one Meiser. Hahidim mefarish va'azal levi lager layasam v'almana v'u Meiser ani shaf levi b'chlal ani shein lechelik baretz. Rashi says, 1 second, how can the Gemara even entertain the idea that there's no Meiser Rishon? On the 3rd year it says clearly v'nasata la levi lager layasam v'almana. Just like Ani, it says clearly La Levi. Rashi says, no, you could touch the La Levi as a din in Ani. The Levi has 2 dinim. First of all, he's holy. Besides that, he's poor. Mitzad his holiness, he gets Meiser Rishon. Mitzad his poverty, he gets Meiser Ani. So it could be even a Sata La Levi out on Ani, not out on Levi. B'meila, the only Meiser you're mechoyev is Meiser Ani, not Meiser Rishon. How do you know you're mechoyev Meiser Rishon? So the Gemara has to say from a nachla.
How many receipts do you the same account? He gives you receipts.
But that's a very interesting word. You hear what Rashi is saying? Af levi b'chlal ani, shein lechelik baretz. He has no real estate, so therefore he's an ani, so that's why you would have to give him. Zog the Gemara, Tanya na, Tanya idach. There's some gear says Tanya nami hachi, because that would be more appropriate here. Tanya nami hachi, we also have a brisa to support this idea of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who explains why the 3rd year we changed. Zog the Gemara, the pasuk says, Ki sechala Laser Eskol Meiser Tvuascha Bashana Shlisha Shnasa Meiser. What we just read. When you finish tithing, all the tithing of the 3rd year, the year of Meiser, it's called Shnasa Meiser. So we learn from here Shana Shein Ba La Meiser Echad. The year when there's only one Meiser from the 2 that you had in the previous years. Hakeitzad. What does this mean? Meiser Rishon and Meiser Ani. You give Meiser Rishon and Ani. Meiser Sheni, the 2nd Meiser, your bottle is obliterated for the 3rd year, and it resumes the 4th year. Yachal, you would think, af Meiser Rishon ami bottle. Meiser Rishon should also go on the 3rd year, as we asked. This is what the Bryce is asking. Talmud loymar. So the pasuk tells us in the psukim that deal with biur Meiser is eliminating the Meiser. The pasuk says as follows. I'm going to read the whole pasuk. Miktsei shalosh shanim. At the end of 3 years, toitzi eskol maser tvuascha bashana ahi v'inachta b'sharecha. At the end of 3 years, you should take out all the Meiser and put it where you have to put it. Ubaha Levi, the Levi who has no inheritance, and the Ger, and the Yosem, and the Almana, they should come and take the Meiser. So it says, Ubaha Levi, Hager, Vayosem, Valmana, and they should eat and be satiated. So we learn from this, Kolzman Shabbat Tenloi. Whenever the Levi comes, give him. It says at the end of this of the 3 years, Ubaha Levi, the Levi comes, and the Ger and the Yosem and the Almana. So the Ger and the Yosem and the Almana means the Ger and Yosem Almana are Aniyim. Ubaha Levi teaches me whenever the Levi comes to get Meiser Rishon, give it to him. Even on the 3rd year. Divri Rabbi Yehuda. This is the interpretation of Rabbi Yehuda. So basically, when Rabbi Yehuda is saying Ubah, whenever he comes, give him. It means whenever he comes, whenever the Levi comes, even the 3rd year, you give him. That's what it means. Now the question is, Rashi just told us before that maybe the Levi is getting Alts Meiser Ani, not Alts Meiser Rishon. So maybe Ubaha Levi, whenever he comes, you give him as Meiser Ani, right? But the truth is, if you look at Rashi says, Ubaha Levi, LaMeiser Rishon, Kolzman Shabbat, V'ha Shana Shlishis Ksiv, Miktei Shalashanim Ubaha Levi. This was said on the 3rd year, Miktei Shalashanim. So the Levi is coming. The Levi is coming to get the meisters from all the 3 years. He's coming to get. So you can't just say the Levi is coming als meister ani, because he's also coming to get the meisters of all the 3 years. That's the mashmos. In other words, he's coming to get meister rishon, which is shaykh for all 3 years. So you can't just say he's coming to get Meiser Rishon from the year 1 and 2, and the 3rd year he's coming to get Meiser Ani, because that already says, the Mefarshim say that's already, you have the other pasuk, Yisachal Laser, is called Marsat Fuascha, Benasata La Levi. We know that the Levi already gets Meiser Ani. So this pasuk, which tells me he gets from all 3 years, means he gets Meiser Rishon from all 3 years. So that's the limud here. You don't need this Ubaha Levi to teach me what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. You can learn it out from another pasuk, because he tainas taka, maybe Ubaha Levi means he only comes from Meiser Ani taka. So therefore, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, Harei Omer, the pasuk says by Meiser Rishon, El Halavim Tadaber V'Amar Taleim Kisikhu Meis Bnei Yisrael Sameiser Shenasati Lechem Meitam Benachalaschem. When you take from the Jewish people the tithing that I gave you from them instead of your real estate inheritance, in Kishay Akasav Lanachal, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says the Torah compares it to a inheritance, Manachala in Lehefsik, Af Meiser Rishon in Lehefsik. Both of them don't have a hefsik, and therefore they also apply to the 3rd year. And therefore, we learn out from here that Shnas Hashlishis, the 3rd year, you're mechuyev in Truma, you're mechuyev in Meiser Rishon, you're mechuyev in Meiser Ani, you're not mechuyev in Meiser Sheni. I didn't understand your question. It didn't. No, on one din. How do you know that the 3rd year you don't give Meiser Sheni? It's like a huge chiddush. Suddenly this Meiser gets cut off. Like, we don't do this usually. Yeah, like the Torah says you have to give Meiser Sheni, and suddenly we make a whole year that you're off. Like, why are you doing that? We don't do that usually. No, we spoke right before. Right before we were talking about it, right? We spoke about the vegetables, that if you collect vegetables before Rosh Hashanah, and it's the 2nd year, and then after Rosh Hashanah it's the 3rd year, so the vegetables from before Rosh Hashanah goes to Yerushalayim. The vegetables of the 3rd year doesn't go to Yerushalayim, it just goes to poor people. Yeah, so the one just wants to know, like, where did Chazal invent this whole chiddush? There's no Gemarah Bavli on Zeroyim, besides Masechta Brachas. The whole Seder Zeroyim, which is all the halachas of Tumas and Maiskus, you don't have any Gemarah on it. Yerushalmi we have, not Bavli. You only have Masechta Brachas, the next Masechta is Masechta Shabbos. So basically, all the Masechtas that deal with Tumas and Maiskus, you have Masechta Peyah, Masechta Shviyas, Masechta Tumas, Masechta Maiskus, Chala, Arla, Bikurim, Meiser Sheni. We don't have no Gemarahs on it, nothing. So it's all discussed in different sugyas and shas.
The person who always takes care of the different things, this one he has to be Rochel Bilchatana and constant follow-up. I'm telling you from personal.
You mean the one you emailed it to?
Yeah. Okay. With everything. Because he's asked me for a few weird things. He wanted the combination of you and the shul together on one sheet. I have no idea. You have to be very, very, in everything, very specific.
Fine, no problem.
Particularly if you're paying for a park, he's going to try and piggyback, and you don't want to do that. So, not for bad, it's just you have to be, everything's a havamina. The maskana, you have to write it down.
Got it. Okay.
So,
thank you for the emails. I saw you were very specific in the email. I was impressed.
Everything, you have to be very specific. I know my customers. It's not for bad.
Yes, you just have to know.
In the world of havaminas.
Yeah.
And the maskana at the end, okay, this is what we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
On the 7th year, when people don't, well, I guess only farmers don't really have an income. Which meisters are they?
In the 7th year, you're exempt from everything.
From everything.
It's hefker. It's ownerless.
Right. So if you have no income,
if I don't own something, I don't have to give meiser from it. I don't own these fruits.
So in the 7th year, there's nothing.
Okay. I mean, Shemitah is quite a revolutionary idea.
So I'm a little bit confused, but
I mean, imagine you have a bank account.
But then there are people. But that's only. For
No, not the bank account is hefker. The profits, all the interest. You have a bank account which has a lot of money. It's making a lot of interest every year.
Yeah.
And everybody is entitled to sign a checkbook a whole year. It's not a simple thing. That's where the pasuk says in Parshas Ba'ahar, the Jews people are going to say, "What are we going to eat in the 7th year? What are we going to eat? Man lo'echal b'shana hashviyas. What are we going to eat?" So he says, "V'tzivisias b'rchasi." The blessing is going to be so powerful on the 6th year. The crop, the produce of the 6th year is going to be so abundant. You're going to have for year 6. You'll have for year 7. And you'll also have for year 8. Yeah, all the way till year 9. Because remember, on 7 you're not planting. So you actually have to plant on 8. So 8 you also need. Till it's going to grow on 8. So he says you're going to have enough for 3 years. You're going to have enough for 6. You're going to have enough for 7. And you're going to have enough for the beginning of 8. Till it grows 8. This is an interesting thing.
If man was making the religion, he's certainly going to put this clause in there.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, we once did a lecture on that. Like when you think about the Torah, who made the Torah, right? If somebody wrote it, if a human being wrote the Torah, say Moshe Jefferson wrote the Torah, yeah? You have to have seichel, what to write, what not to write, if you're making up a religion. One of the worst things you can do to people is tell them that in this year you're going to have so much produce that it's going to last for 3 years. Because how are you going to manipulate nature? Exactly. How are you going to manipulate? The first time Shemitah comes, the Jews will say you're a liar. The first time there was a Shemitah, they have to say you're a liar. Right away, and it's over. Don't tell me this is God. Tell me that you made this up in your bathroom. You understand? The first time you don't write things that immediately you could be. Who could manipulate nature? Who could manipulate nature?
Hashem.
Huh? Hashem. Okay. If I own, that's my point.
It's an easy one.
No, it's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody's saying he was a fool. You can't. You're not a fool. You want people to believe it's God. You got to feed them the right information.
You certainly leave this clause out.
The Torah is one of the worst documents if a person made it some horrible mistakes. You don't tell people a few thousand years ago that once a week, no slave can work.
In 7th year,
No animal can work. You don't tell people the 7th year you don't own your field. Everyone can have everything. Remember, today we don't take farming seriously. Right. Unfortunately, we don't appreciate it. We go to the store, we buy fruits. In the ancient times, farming was everything. Agriculture, this was business. Success meant agriculture. You have a lot of fields. That's what success
Like
meant.
telling the diamond dealers today,
Yeah.
every 7th year, give up your diamond.
Yeah. Telling real estate magnate. You don't collect rent on the 7th year. He has real estate on 5th Avenue. Yeah. No rent. No collecting rent in the 7th year. In fact, everybody could move in, or everybody could collect equal rent.
See, the whole society was based on agricultural. The
Yeah.
whole society,
Everything was
like
agriculture.
computers and lawyers. And
That
was it. That was the world.
That was the computer of the day. That was the internet
world.
of the day. So to do this, it's like it's very. It's not something you want to accept. It's very counterintuitive. It's counterproductive. Besides Shabbos, every week that you have to stop is also okay. But that for people is geschmack. But for slaves, and the 7th year was even animals. Everybody was equal, even animals. It's not like you can't even fence in animals. You have to give animals also the right to eat. So it's like everybody's equal. Jews, non-Jews, animals, people, everybody. And you promise them that they're going to have abundance. So these are some of the things that are very interesting in Torah. Huh?
They did it. They check out the next year.
It's CVCS Berchasi.
The abundance part you can't really promise, but the other parts I could see getting past. Not collecting rent on the 7th year, I could get that back. Karl Marx, that's what he did essentially.
You mean inspire people towards socialism?
Right.
Everyone's
That's what-
socialist.
There's a gun to
It's-
their head.
That's 7 years. That's full time. That's not every 7th year.
No, fine. So I'm not telling you to do it your whole life. I'm telling you once in 7 years you should be.
No,
a nice guy.
no, it's a whole different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not comparing the two. One is I can't do this unless it's real. I can't control nature. I'm just saying. The other point I'm trying to say is that the mitzvahs that they accepted upon themselves, it was a difficult religion to accept. It's not a religion that was easy.
A man could easily convince another person to do such a noble act.
There's such things.
But then it has to
No,
grow
it has to
every
work.
year.
If it didn't work, then the religion
Shmita
is
is
strong.
purely agricultural. So people who have different jobs. Let's say you go around fixing wagons all year, then you do get meiser. Yeah. If you have an income, you fix wagons, you write mezuzos, tefillin, Sifrei Torah. Somebody's going to pay you for that work.
Oh yeah, that's a different type. That's not my. You mean Meiser
Based on
Ksafim?
land.
Yeah,
Meiser Ksafim.
yeah, that's a different thing. We're talking a Meiser from the earth,
Meiser Ksafim.
from the revenue a person makes. You
Okay,
give
yeah,
10%.
just income.
Yeah, that's a different type of Meiser.
Right. That's just 10% of income. It has nothing to do with Meiser.
Yeah, no, you
So
can make
Meiser
income
saving,
on the
Meiser
seventh year. We're talking about income from earth,
Right.
from agriculture. You can make income.
Okay. Okay. That was my question. Like, what happens on the 7th year? So there's no Meisers.
There was also the loans were cancelled. The
Agriculturally
all the loans were cancelled. That's another very interesting thing.
So
If
on
I
the 6th
borrowed
year,
$1
people
million
going crazy,
from you on the 6th year,
People are going crazy trying to collect that.
Shemitah came and all the loans were cancelled.
That's a tough committee to be on.
All the loans, huh? Hillel Institute.
Yeah,
It was because people stopped lending money. So in Hillel instituted a principle, which basically meant that Besdin, the cancellation of loans are on private loans, not public loans. So basically you gave over your loans to Besdin. It was a way of dealing with it because of a problem. Because there was a crisis. Nobody was lending money to anybody. Especially a year before Shemitah. The guy won't pay back, and Shemitah comes and it's over. You don't own the money. But this is also a fascinating idea. Shemitah comes, all the loans are cancelled. It's like basically we start all over again.
Reset.
Huh? Yeah, it's fascinating. I lent you $1 million,
It's the same every week.
and I don't owe you the money.
Nobody lent $1 million then.
It's a brand new creation.
No,
every week.
even adjusted for whatever, there was no such thing as such a.
You didn't need, like, you weren't investing in
But you still
you weren't
own.
buying a
You
house.
still have these- the concept still exists.
Yeah, the
You own
concept,
something.
yeah.
A lot less debt.
You still owe, but you know, it's all relative.
You're dealing with more tangible realities. Today, you could live your whole life on theoretical money. No, I'm serious.
You
know.
credit card for a few years.
Credit cards, check. What? It's theoretical money. It's the concepts, Ponzi schemes.
All money was theoretical.
Huh?
All money is
Today money's theoretical. Then it wasn't theoretical. Gold, silver
Gold
wasn't
is
theoretical. Today it's theoretical. Yud Beis Amid Beis, in the middle of the page, the two dots. V'lanedarim v'chuli. The line starts Rishon ein lo hefsek. Rishon ein lo hefsek. There's two dots there. Yeah, there's two dots. Right before Tana Rabbanan, yeah. V'lanedarim v'chuli. The Gemarah quoted a brisa that said that on the first day of Tishrei is a Rosh Hashanah for vegetables, for Meiser Reis, and for Nedarim. This did not say in our Mishnah. In our Mishnah it says the first day of Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah for other things, including vegetables. Did not say La Nedarim. The Gemara explained what these three things are. Lirakas means the beginning of the year for tithing all vegetables is the first day of Tishrei. Meaning whatever was harvested before the first day of Tishrei belongs to a previous year of tithing. Whatever is harvested on the first day of Tishrei or after the first day of Tishrei belongs to a new year of vegetables. And therefore, if one year, for example, was the first one was the second sabbatical year, and the following year was the third sabbatical year, the broccoli or the tomatoes or the cucumbers that I plucked before Rosh Hashanah would have to go to Yerushalayim, 10% of it. The broccoli and the cauliflower that I harvested after Rosh Hashanah, 10% of it would go to poor people instead. That would be the very practical ramifications of this halacha, including what was relevant every year, and that is that I can't tithe from one group for another group because each year needs its own tithe.
What about the greenhouse stuff that they have now?
On money, also we have to make a part of Tisha. On income, money, income. Do we have to do also
Never
myself?
heard that.
There is no date that we have to do.
I never heard that.
As we said, it's Rosh is master.
Now, what was Maestris? Maestris represented Maestris that are min ha-Torah, not vegetables, which are a rabbinic obligation to tithe. Maestris, which are min ha-Torah, which would of course include all grain, would of course include grapes and olives, and according to some, even all fruits. According to the Rambam, all fruits as well, which would all be biblical. There, too, the cutoff time for Meiser, in terms of grain, not fruits. In terms of grain, fruits has a different time, to be Shvat, but in terms of grain, the year also is Echad B'Tishri. The Gemarah continues, V'la Nedorim.
Where does it say V'la
In the Brisa. We quoted a Brisa on Daf Yud Beis Amid Aleph, right, which the Gemarah analyzed. Daf Yud Beis Amid Aleph, we quoted a Brisa. Right after the word V'la Yerakas, it says Tana L'Yerakas, L'Maisus, L'Nedarim. So the Gemarah will analyze the first words, now it goes to the last one, V'la Nedarim. Tana Rabbanon, what does this even mean? What does it mean it's Rosh Hashanah for pledges? What would you need a Rosh Hashanah for? You make a neder, you make a neder. Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis taught. This is also a brayse in Masechta Rosh Hashanah. Hamuder hanam mechaveira. If somebody makes a neder, if somebody takes upon himself, he makes a pledge that he's not going to have any benefit from his friend. And halachically, a person has that power. If I prohibit on myself through a neder, through a promise, that I'm not going to have benefit from a particular person, Chaim Yankel Finkelstein, I'm not going to benefit from him. Or not from a particular person, from a particular object. I will not have any benefit from coffee beans. I will not have any benefit from tea bags. If you're already making one, you should probably make a different type of one. But I will not, whatever the neder is, I'm not going to benefit from a person or a particular object or item. So the halacha is one may not benefit from them, and if one does, he or she is transgressing a prohibition. In Parshas Matos, la yachal dvara, you're not allowed to desecrate your word. Of course, a neder could be for a particular time limit, for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year, for 10 years. And it also can start from a particular time period. In other words, I could start the neder in a month or in a year. So hamuder anam mechaver, if somebody makes a prohibition on himself to benefit from his friend, l'shana, for a year, he counts 12 months from day to day. So if this is the day of Tes Adar, he counts 12 months. Till Tes Adar, he can't benefit. What happens? What if he says, L'shana zu, I'm not going to benefit from you. I'm making a neder not to benefit from you during this year. Even if it was on the 29th of Elul, the moment the first day of Tishrei arrives, also Shana, the year has passed, and already the next day he can benefit from his friend. The neder is over. Why? Because Rosh Echad B'Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah L'Nedarim. That's the meaning, Rosh Hashanah L'Nedarim. When I say I'm not going to benefit from you during this year, what does this year mean? When does this year begin? When does this year end? So that's what the Brisa tells us. It begins on the 1st of Tishrei and it ends on the 29th of Elul. So therefore, even if it's only the 29th of Elul and there's only one day left of the neder, that's fine. Shana Zu is Shana Zu. There's only one day left of the year. That's the meaning that Rosh Hashanah L'Nedarim is the first day of Tishrei. If Rosh Hashanah L'Nedarim would be Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so then Shana Zu would be 6 months. I wouldn't be able to benefit from you till Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That is how the Gemarah explains it. The Gemarah quotes the Brisa that explains it. The Gemarah explains, even according to the opinion that one day of the year cannot be considered a year, referring to what we learned on Daf Yud, an argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Meir says that sometimes one day of the year could be considered a year. Rabbi Lazar says no, one day is not. You need at least 30 days. And this was relevant also. For example, we learned on Daf Beis, if you appoint a king, Erev Rosh Chodesh Nisan, if you say Yom Echad B'Shana Chashav Shana, so tomorrow Rosh Chodesh Nisan is already the end of the first year, it's the beginning of the second anniversary. So he says, even according to the opinion, that if he's standing Erev Rosh Hashanah, and he says Shana Zu, so the time left till Rosh Hashanah is not called a year. So l'cha'ira, you would think, according to that opinion, he would have to wait at least 12 months for his neder to take root, and his neder continues for 12 months. Here it's different. Why? Because l'tzu'urei nafshei kabbalaleh. For whatever the reason this person made this neder, it has a common denominator. He's accepting upon himself to aggravate himself, to deprive himself from something. Whatever it is. Either he thinks he's hurting the other person, or he thinks he's hurting himself. That's already, for that you have to deal with your own stuff. What do you gain by making this neder from this person? I'm never looking, I'm never having, I'm never walking into your house. But what the common denominator is, L'tzuri nafshi kabbalah, he's accepting upon himself some aggravation. Mission was accomplished. One day, mission was accomplished. He was mitztayir, he was aggravated. So therefore, even one day can work as a year. Ve'ema Nissen. Frag the Gemarah, why does the Brisa say it's Tishrei? Maybe it's Nissen. I mean, Nissen is also called Rosh Hashanah. How do we know it's Tishrei? And for the Gemarah, b'nedarim halach hachalashim b'nei adam. By nedarim, the concept is in halacha, you follow the language of humans. In other words, we accept as meaning what people usually refer to as Rosh Hashanah. Since usually what we refer to Rosh Hashanah is the first of Tishrei, not the first of Nisan, even though Chodesh Nisan is also a Rosh Hashanah for particular halachas. So when somebody says in a neder, B'shana zu, Lashon B'nei Adam would be Tishrei, not Nisan, and that's why the Brisa says it's Rosh Hashanah the Rosh Hashanah is Be'echad B'Tishrei. Here you have to understand why our Mishnah doesn't bring this. Why would our Mishnah not bring this halacha? That B'Rosh Echad B'Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah l'Nedarim. It's difficult to understand. So one answer that Tosfos gives earlier on Daf Zayin, and this is also brought in other Rishonim, the Rashba and the Ran, is because the Gemarah says before that the Mishnah mentions Rosh Hashanahs where a year begins, not where a year ends. Here the Rosh Hashanah is for the end of the year. Right? It's not for the beginning of the year. If I say that the neder is for this year, so it ends on Rosh Hashanah. It doesn't begin on Rosh Hashanah. We count in our Mishnah things that begin on Rosh Hashanah, not where the year begins on Echad B'Tishrei. Here, the year ends on Echad B'Tishrei. Another explanation is, the Ritva says, that since the Gemarah says that by Nedarim you follow Lashon B'nei Adam, this actually means that if Lashon B'nei Adam, if in this particular town or community, they call Echad B'Nissen Rosh Hashanah, so then you would have to make Echad B'Nissen Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, the Mishnah doesn't say this din because this is dependent on the nature of the community. It's not an absolute halacha. The Mishnah is discussing absolute times of Rosh Hashanah. It's not absolute. We call it Echad B'Tishrei Rosh Hashanah. If it would be another day, it would be something else. If you would call Chanukah Rosh Hashanah, I mean, we don't call Chanukah Rosh Hashanah, but the concept is it could be Rosh Chodesh Nisan just as Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Of course, today when the minhag is that everybody calls Rosh Hashanah Echad B'Tishrei, of course, this halacha remains valid that when it comes to Nedarim, this is called Rosh Hashanah. It was a famous big Rav. His name was Reb Shlomo Kluger, the Rav of Brod. So he has a Shal Setshuvah Elef L'cha Shloima. So he asks over there, he says, interesting, halachically, he says, Mincha, Rosh Hashanah, you say, Baruch Aleinu Es Hashana Hazois Ve'es Kol Minei Svasa L'Toiva. So he says, Meil, according to that Meir, Yom Echad B'Shana Chashav Shana, no. So even though you're davening Mincha by Lichtzend in Rosh Hashanah, and some people are Mahadir to daven Mincha a minute before Shkiyas, even though there's 1 minute left to Rosh Hashanah, so you say, Baruch Aleinu Es Hashana Hazois. You could still say, bless this year. He says, but according to Rebbe Lazar, that you need at least a month for Chashav Shana, as the Gemara brings it, according to Rebbe Lazar, how do you say in davening, Chazal instituted, Baruch Aleinu Es Hashana Hazois, right? Then you say it should be, V'sabeinu b'tavech v'arech shnaseinu kashanim ha'toivas l'vracha v'varech hashanim. Huh? That's what the Shlomo Kluger asks. So he says, what the Gemara says here, Madach by Nedarim, you say, L'tziuri nafshi kabbalalei. He wanted to be Mitzayer himself, that works even for a day. He says, Baruch Aleinu, he wants to bless. He wants to bless himself and he wants to bless the world. So he says, that works also for a day. So even a day, it would still work. He says, especially according to the conclusion that B'nedarim halach hacha Lashon B'nei Adam. So for sure, Lashon B'nei Adam, this is the year. It's still the end of the year, whatever the year is. So therefore, you could say as Hashanah Hazois, even though there's only a few minutes left over for the year, you still have the year. The Father Shlomo says that from here you see that in 1 minute you could change the whole year. Baruch Aleinu as Hashanah Hazois, the whole year could be blessed.
Even if you wait for the lesson.
Yeah. Sagt die Gemarah weiter. Tanan Hassam. We learned over there. What's over there? Over there is a Mishnah, Masechta Maisris, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Gimel. So we learned a Mishnah, Hatilson. Tilson is translated by Rashi as fenugreek. Right? Fenugreek, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Fenugreek is, you'll see Rashi.
I never seen that in the supermarket.
You never saw fenugreek?
It's a tea. It's a chia. It's the leaf of, I think, cumin or one of these things.
Yemenite Jews eat it on Rosh Hashanah. Yemenite Jews eat it on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, the seed is called
Yeah. Chilba, yeah. Chilba, they call it chilba, yeah. Rashi says tilson, min tavlin, it's a spice. Pinigri, it's fenugreek. We call it fenugreek. It's from the family of legumes, and it's very popular. Its seeds, often its seeds are used. Its seeds are eaten, mixed with other spices. Sometimes its leaves. Its leaves are used. This is called tilson. So we learned before that the time of the year for vegetables depends on when you loikit it, when you pluck it, when you harvest it. If it was done a day before Rosh Hashanah, it belongs to the previous year. If it was done a day after Rosh Hashanah, it belongs to the next year. So the Gemarah is now going to bring a Mishnah, Masechta Maisris, that enumerates various phases according to which you establish the year of various plants. As we shall see. Tanan Hassam, we learned in a Mishnah, Maisris Perek Aleph. Hatilson, Chilba, fenugreek, becomes obligated in Meiser, Mishatitzmach, once it grows, which seems obvious, but the Gemara is going to explain what that means. Once it grows. And, as Rashi explains, what do we mean when it grows? Zok Rashi, Mishatitzmach, Achar Shnas Tzmichasei hu misaser v'loi Achar Shnas Likitasa. You give Meiser of it according to the year when it grew, not the year when it was harvested. So if it grew, say in the summer of Tavshanai Vav, but it was plucked, it was detached from the earth after Rosh Hashanah, by vegetables we said, what's considered the year? Tavshanai and Zion, because it was plucked after Rosh Hashanah. So Rashi says, the Mishnah says here, no, Mishatitzmach. When it grew, that's the year of Meiser. That's the year of Meiser, not when it was harvested. Now, here it's an important, there's an important detail to understand here in Rashi. Really, the Mishnah is coming to tell us when these types of species, when these plants become edible, so they could become mechuyev in Meiser. If you detach a plant, an edible plant, we're talking about edible, Meiser, things that are edible. Fenugreek people eat. So we're talking about plants, vegetables, of course, that are edible by people. Oichel Adam. If you detach a plant, a fruit, a vegetable, something that's edible, before it ever becomes edible, when it's still immature and you can't eat it, it's never mechuyev and meiser, because it never matured, it never developed into a human food. Maybe it's an animal food, but animal foods are not mechuyev and meiser. That's why Esav's question, how you give meiser from straw, wasn't an applicable question, wasn't an appropriate question. So if you detach any plant too early, it's not mechuyev and meiser. So you always have to know what's the time that this is the minimum of growth, that now if you harvest it, it's mechuyev and meiser. That's number one. But Rashi adds something else. Rashi says that when we're establishing the time when it becomes mechuyev and meiser, it's also relevant to one more thing, and that is which year of meiser are you going to give? There's two elements. There's one component is when it becomes mechuyev and meiser because it's called an edible food that human beings can consume. That's number one. Number two is, okay, so I know that it's mechuyev and meiser, but when do I define which year it belongs to? That's very important. Is it year 2? Is it year 3 of the Shemitah? For example, by vegetables we learned, I don't care when it became edible. It could become edible in the month of Av. But if I harvest it in the month of Tishrei, it's not considered the year of Av, even though it grew in Av, it matured in Av. So it's two separate things. One is called the Chiyuv Meiser. One is called Oynas HaMeiseris. In other words, Shnas HaMeiseris, the year when I have to give it Meiser from. So Rashi here is putting the two together. The Mishnah there is talking about when it becomes edible, Mishatitzmach. We'll soon see what Mishatitzmach means, when it grows. Obviously it has to grow to be edible. If it doesn't grow, you can't eat it. We'll soon see what Titzmach means. Titzmach means the seeds. The seeds grow. But Rashi says one more thing. You see, that's what Rashi says. That's the year when you have to give Meiser. When it comes to fenugreek, it's not when I harvested it. If it was ready in Av, in Tammuz, even though I plucked it after Rosh Hashanah, I have to give Meiser from the previous year. It belongs to the previous year. This is an important ta'ar.
Why is it different?
Okay, good question. Well, this is a legume.
Yeah, then it's supposed to be like the legume.
Grains are not vegetables. Legumes are not vegetables. Vegetables follow Lakita. Nothing else follows Lakita.
No,
Vegetables are
you have to
unique.
bring home.
Grain, the Meiser is not when you harvest it.
No, when you have to bring it home. It's small.
No. We're not talking now the Chi of Meiser. You're mixing two things. There's when something becomes Mechuyev and Meiser, and there's which year it belongs to. We'll see in a moment. Grain does not have to do with when you harvest it, the year. Wait one moment. Okay, it'll become clear. I'm just making this ha'ara. That according to Rashi, when it becomes Mechuyev and Meiser, right away, it's part of the produce of that year, irrelevant of when you actually harvested or bring it home. So therefore, okay, we'll see in a moment. So Tilson, which is Mechuyev and Meiser Mishatitzmach, you give Meiser with the produce of the year that it grew. So all the Tilson that grew, all the fenugreek that grew before Rosh Hashanah, you give Meiser together. What grew after Rosh Hashanah, you give Meiser separate. Even though some of the Tilson I may have cut after Rosh Hashanah. Hatvua. What about grain? What about grain? And Rashi says, Tvua here of course means barley, wheat, spelt, oats, and rye, 5 types of grain. But Rashi says it also means tirish. It also means grapes. Dagan v'tirish koyin tvua k'tiksiv, it says in Bamidbar and Kairach, kitvuas goyren uchisvuas Yaakov. Like the grain of the silo, which refers to grain that we make flour out of. And also kisvuas Yaakov, he calls it the grain of wine. Yaakov is wine. So the word tvua here includes grain and grapes. And both of them are mechuyev and meisim and atayra. V'hazesim and olives. And these 3 species are absolutely mechuyev and meisim and atayra. Nobody can argue that grain you have to give meisim biblically, and wine you have to give meisim biblically, and oil you have to give meisim biblically. The Torah describes all of them. When it describes meiser sheni, it says leitucha lechel b'sharecha meiser goncha b'siroshcha v'yitzarecha. From all of these you have to give meiser. Misheyaviu shlish. Here, it's when they grow to be a third. When they reach a third of their full maturity, this is the time that you say they're mechuyev in meiser. They are now a human food, even though they only reached a third, and you harvest it right now, you're still mechuyev to give truma, you're still mechuyev to give meiser. And which year do you give it from? Whatever year they reached a third in. So if they reached a third in the month of Elul, Erev Rosh Hashanah, and then you wait for another month till they reach their full maturity, and then you harvest them, you're giving meiser from the previous year. You're not giving meiser from the new year. By vegetables, that wouldn't be the halacha. Right? By vegetables, the halacha would be, it all depends when you cut it. Here, no. It depends when it grew a third. Shlish. Rashi says, V'hazesim yitzar. Misheyaviu shlish, misasrin achar shana sheyigiu boy l'shlish b'shulam. The meiser is based on the year when they reached a third of their maturity, of their ripeness. Im shniya, if it's the second year of Shemitah, you're going to send them to Yerushalayim. Im shlishis, if it's the third year of Shemitah, they're going to have a different halacha. 10% of the olives, 10% of the grapes, 10% of the grain you're going to give to poor people. You're not going to take to Yerushalayim.
So you would have to check in your own...
Huh?
You would have to go check before, say, Rosh Hashanah when...
Yeah, you have to know when it reached a third. When it reached a third of its full height. Some say when it comes to olives and grapes, shlish means something else. Some of the Rishonim means when it produces a third of the wine and the oil that you're going to be able to extract from it when it's fully ripe. When it comes to grain, of course, that doesn't apply. It means a third of its growth. By olives and grapes, some of the Rishonim, Rabbi Hananel says, what it means is it has liquid, the liquid that you're going to extract from it, you're going to squeeze out of it, reached a third of the ultimate liquid, of the ultimate beverage, the wine and the oil that you hope to extract from it when it reaches its full maturity. That's what a shlish means.
We assume
So it's a
it goes
shlish.
acharov.
Huh?
You don't go check everyone. It's a rov. So if the rov of the zetim,
Yeah, it's a group. Yeah. Yeah. The Gemarah says, "Ma'ik misha titzmach." What do you mean fenugreek? You give ma'isa when it grows. Misha titzmach lizroyim. It means when the seeds grow. Rashi says misha titzmach lizroyim. He actually doesn't say misha titzmach lizroyim means when the seed is ready. Oh, sorry, yeah, the previous Rashi, yeah. Misha titzmach lizroyim sha'azeret sameach b'seicha. Once the seed grew, that's what we mean misha titzmach. Then it is. First of all, mechuyev and meiser, and that's the year when you give meiser. I should just say that Tosfos and the Rambam give a different interpretation. It says it's what Misha Titzmach means that the fenugreek developed to the point that the seed could be planted and produce new fenugreek. Misha Titzmach L'Zoyim doesn't mean, as Rashi says, the seed grew. It means that the seed could already be used to reproduce, to recreate a new fenugreek.
That's what he means, sprouting. The sprouts.
Yeah.
They're saying the definition in English was sprouts.
Sprouts, yeah.
Which is more in line
Yeah,
with
okay,
Tosfos.
yeah. So now the seeds are worthy, they're suitable to be planted and to produce, to sprout new fenugreek. But Rashi just says, Stam, there's a ha'ara here that we're going to learn a little later. It becomes a difficult issue. I just want to mention it here. And that is, with grain, this works well. With olives and grapes, there's a little difficulty, and that is, these are fruits. Soon on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis we're going to learn that when it comes to fruits, the year of Meiser belongs to the year of Chanota, the year that it buds, which means actually when the flower falls off and the tiny little fruit emerges, which is of course not edible yet, that's called Chanota. That is the year that we use to define the year of the fruit. So the year that the fruit buds, and it happens to be that the cutoff time for that is Shvat, Tu B'Shvat. If my apple buds before Tu B'Shvat, so then it belongs to the previous year. After Tu B'Shvat belongs to the new year.
For everything.
Huh? Yeah, for everything. If that's the case, it would be difficult to understand what the Mishnah is telling us here, that V'zeisim Mishayaviu Shlish. What is Mishayaviu Shlish? Shlish is already a much later period than Chanata. Chanata means the flower fell off, and what you see is just the tiny little immature fruit. Mishayaviu Shlish already means it grew a third. So it's hard to understand how that could be reconciled with what the Gemarah is going to explain. So Rashi learns that the answer is you have to distinguish between grapes, olives, and other fruits. Because Rashi learns that all fruits, you have to give a meiser only midirabona. Besides anavim and zeisim, besides tirosh and yitzer, wine and oil. So he says, anavim and zeisim, they're just like dagan, they're grain, they're mechoyev meiser minatayra. Other fruits, he believes, are like vegetables, they're mechoyev meiser only midirabona. So he says, plants that are mechoyev meiser minatayra, they belong to the year when they grew a third. Why? Because the Gemarah is going to explain soon. Why by grain we wait for a third, and that's going to apply to them also. Where other fruits, their year is defined by other phases of growth and development. And that's based on how the sages instituted the time.
Other fruits or fruits as opposed to...
Other fruits. Other fruits which according to Rashi are the Rabbana.
Right. The
So-
Rambam wouldn't
What's this?
Right,
straight everything.
right.
What's the uniqueness with Tilson that they're using that as a single phrase?
Why Dafka Tilson, you mean?
Yeah, we're talking about grapes and zaysim they represent.
No, he goes through a list of everything. It's just the Gemara wants to focus on one detail, so it quotes these words. It goes through a list of enormous amounts.
Tilson has a unique.
No, it goes through a huge list. He's just mentioning this because you'll see in a moment. He wants to discuss this detail of Tfuah and Zeis. So according to Rashi, other fruits, it's based on when the Chachamim made it. When it comes to fruits of the tree, it's Chanata, it's the time of budding. When it comes to vegetables, it's the time of harvesting. Complete opposite. For fruits, the year is mamish when it begins, and for vegetables, the year is mamish after everything, after you harvested it. Zog the Gemarah, now the Gemarah analyzes. When it comes to grain, which represents grain, grapes, and olives, they're mechuyev in meiser. Once they mature a third, that's when they're mechuyev in meiser. If you cut them now, if you cut them before, they're not edible. There's nothing to do with it. No meiser. And number two, what do we learn from here? That's the year. The year is when they grew a third. I don't care if they matured next year. It's clear. This halacha is clear, yeah? If it's Chavtes Elul, I go into my field, I go into my orchard, and I see the grapes mature the third, even though it takes time for the grapes to mature, maybe another few weeks or more, nonetheless, the meiser is all from the previous year, not from the new year, even though it's the new year when it finally matured and it harvested. What's the source of this? Why are we defining the year of Trumas and Meiseris based on the third? Again, the fact that you can't mix years, that's a pasuk. Aser to aser es kol, tu azarecha, which comes out from your field, shana shana. I can't argue with that. I understand that. But why are we defining the year based on the third? Why not a quarter? Why not 2/3? Why not full ripeness, geschmacker? Wait for full ripeness. What's the reason for this? Now this question is on grain. Minon and mili, how do we know this? This question is on grain, on grapes, and on olives. You know why? Because these three are obligated min ha-Torah. So this we want to say, these are biblical stuff. So what's the biblical source? What's the Torah source for the time of Meiser? We're not going to have this question about vegetables. Why is the year of vegetables when you harvest it? Why is the year of fruits besides grapes and olives when they bud? Why? And I'll answer you, because these are all mechuyev and meiser midrabanan. So they are the ones who defined the year, and they had reasons. We'll see the reasons. They had reasons why they defined that the year of the vegetable is based on when you harvest it, and the year of the fruits of the tree is based on when it buds. I don't need a source of a pasuk from a pasuk. The same ones who established that I have to give meiser can also give me the time frame when I give meiser. But I can't say this by olives and grapes. Here the Torah told me to give meiser. Oh, here I have to understand, you're making me times. These are Torah-dika times. But this you have to have a source in Chumash. You can't just make your own times. The rabbis can't manipulate situations this way. If you're making your own chi of meiser, you have the rights also to say the time. And of course they had a reason for it. They didn't stomp decide, oh, vegetables, we like them when they harvest, and fruits, we like them when they bud. There was a reason for this. The reason is, the Gemarah will explain it on Daf Yudalad Amud Aleph, that basically vegetables live off and they continue to grow from every rain that descends until the moment you harvest it. The vegetables will continue to live and receive vitality and grow till the last minute. So therefore, the year is considered when you harvest it. If there was a rain yesterday, it did something for the fruit. By trees, it's the exact opposite. By trees, it's mamash the exact opposite. So by vegetables, what's considered the year when it grew, so to speak, when you harvested it, even though it was ready 2 weeks ago, before Rosh Hashanah. But till you don't harvest it, it's still getting something. It's still getting nutrition. It's still getting nutrients. We need a good farmer to explain this.
Grapes is definitely, every day makes a difference on grapes.
Grapes.
Yeah.
No, I know. Once it grapes has its own mahalach. We're talking about other fruits. Other fruits, there basically the system is, it absorbs the rain. Trees absorb the rain. We'll see the Gemarah Daf Yudalad till chanata, till budding. And once it buds, now the fruits grow from the sap that the tree already developed within itself and not from the rain. So therefore, the fruits are considered from the blessing of the year when they budded. And since the year begins to be Shvat, which we have to understand why exactly, we'll soon see. That's going to be the sugya later.
Budding starts usually. Budding starts after Tu B'Shvat.
Budding starts after Tu B'Shvat. So the year starts Tu B'Shvat. So therefore, whatever was before that, whatever budded before that is already considered a previous year. Okay. But that's the reason they made this difference. But when you say grain, it's min ha-Torah. Olives min ha-Torah. Grapes min ha-Torah. Here you have to have a different cheshbon, yeah?
Why don't we just do it on how much the guy makes? Because at the end of the day, you never know how much you're going to make.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Why don't we let's say a field, right? We give you the quantity.
Yield.
You never know how much you're going to sell it for.
Okay.
Why don't we just do it on how much the guy makes at the end of the day? Mixing it up. Sometimes, if you went to the market, you see things all over the place, garbage, you don't always make some money.
Okay.
Why is Meiser established based on whatever you get from your produce, whatever your net profit is?
No, you don't have to give Maisa when there's a third.
That's what just saying.
You give Maisa much later. The year belongs to when you give it.
Why do you count the yield instead of the net?
Ah.
Because the Torah still doesn't work that way, that's why.
That's the question.
At the end of the day, the quantity you're only going to get from what you end up taking off. If you let it on a tree, you're not going to pay nice on it.
Right, only harvesting.
Yeah, you're only paying off what you harvest.
That's the question.
I know. The quantity you ended up only paying from the quantity you ended up taking off.
Yeah, but then later say it all spoils for some reason.
You don't have to mice
It's your problem.
Do you pay taxes if you lose your money in an investment?
This government? This government, you pay taxes anyway.
Both ways.
But not, depends on the year.
In the expenses, the Pshleimer, you're also paying taxes. And when you have your net money, you also pay taxes.
You don't take the loss.
Okay.
Yes, you pay more tax.
Different
Mortgage, you pay tax.
No. Yeah, the third of the growth, yeah. Huh? You visited a farm, yeah?
They showed me it was a year of drought.
Yeah.
A field of corn.
Corn, yeah?
They said normally it grows to 12 feet, but that was a year of drought and it only grew to 8 feet.
Interesting, yeah?
So I'm wondering, if the climate changes, so the conditions, that third is
Yeah, well, it happens to be corn is a vegetable. By vegetables, we don't follow the third law. By vegetables, we follow simply when you harvest it. You mean by grain? Yeah, you would have to know what the third is in an ordinary year. If this climate change, so then, yeah, that changes.
It's the year of drought.
Yeah. You got to know your fields, yeah?
The third is a measurement the Torah uses. Kisei, by Shabbos, by Red Yisoi, Shlish Bishula.
Oh.
The third seems to be.
Well, there's a machlokes Rambam and Rashi if it's Chatzi or Shlish. Huh? Michael ben Yisoi was, yeah, because that's the Ganovim eat fast. The Ganovim eat fast. It's an argument if it's a third or a half, yeah. So the question is, Minon Amili, how do we know this? Like, why did we come up with this Maisa with Shlish? What's happens? Fascinating. Let's see Rashi, long Rashi. Minon Amili, it's a Rashi. Atvua va'azeisim koy. This question is only on grain, grapes, and olives. Why? The Maisa didu da'iraisa. Because you have to give Maisa min ha'Torah. Uminol the basa Shlish azli. How do I know that you're following the year when it became mature, a third of its growth? The ilu yerik, the azil bei rabbanim basa lekita, the ilon, the azil basa chanota. I don't have a question by vegetables where I follow harvest time. I don't have a question by tree where I follow budding time, because ma'asid du midirabbanim. I'm not going to ask a question on the rabbis. How do you know? What I want to understand is what their logic is, not how they know. You understand? The question is not minolon. The question is, what were they thinking? So it actually says, Ulakam and Mefarish, Behu Tamayu. The Gemara is going to explain on Daf Yudalad their thinking. Yerek mishum de gaizule kol shaita. V'hadar tzamach v'gadol al make shamim shel shnas l'kitosei. Azal be'basel l'kita. Vegetables, which you cut, you harvest any time, and it always grows from the rain of the year when you harvested it, so therefore you follow the time of harvest. It grew in the previous year, but it continues to receive nutrients from the new rain of this year. Elon gadol al meishana shechanat ba, where a tree only grows from the water of the year in which it budded, shaydei sarav sheba be'ilon lifnei chanata peiros of chayntin, through the sap that arrived into the tree before budding. That is what causes and allows the fruits to bud. Uboyni Gemarah, that's how they develop, that's how they ripe. Shesara fa'ilon oila v'nichnas b'pri tamid u'mimenu gadol. It's the sap of the tree that always ascends and goes into the fruit, and that's what causes its growth. And therefore it's not connected to the new year, it's connected to the old year when it developed the sap from the rain of that year. I understand the logic. My question is only on grain, grapes, and olives. Omer Rabbi, Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Now, I just want you to think the challenge here. We have a Mishnah where the Chazal tell us a very interesting halacha. The third, that is the time. And the Gemara is saying, where did they get this from? So now you have to scan through the whole Torah And you have to find a place where they got developed this from. They came up with this time. From where? It doesn't say, there's no such a pasuk that you give meiser from grain once it reached a third, and that's the year you give it from. So he brings a completely, so this is with the Chazal, the Omer Rabbi, I just want you to appreciate what he has to do here. He's now looking for a source for this. Umatu ba mishmeid Rabbi Yossi HaGalili. Some quoted in the name of Rabbi Yossi HaGalili. Omar Kro. There's a pasuk completely not connected to Truma, not connected to Meiser, not connected b'chalal to the halachas of produce. It's a pasuk about Hakel. Every 7 years, every Jew came, men, women, and children came to Yerushalayim for the mitzvah of Hakel. Omar Kro, the pasuk says by the mitzvah of Hakel, which happened Sukkos after the sabbatical year. Shemitah was, let's say, a particular year. The next Sukkos, a few weeks later, that was the mitzvah of Hakel. So the pasuk says, Parshas Vayelech, Mikei Sheva Shonim, at the end of 7 years, B'moyed Shnas HaShemitah, in the season, in the time of the year of Shemitah, B'chag HaSukkos, in the time of Sukkos. Now we understand the difficulty here. Shnas HaShemitah ends Rosh Hashanah. Why are you calling the next year Sukkos Shnas HaShemitah? If you're really talking about Shnas HaShemitah, then it's not Mikei Sheva Shonim, then it's the beginning of the 7th year. So you're not talking about the beginning of the 7th year, you're talking about after 7 years. So you're talking about the 8th year. So why are you calling it Moyed Shnas HaShemitah? It's after Shnas HaShemitah. In fact, the Gemarah Shnas HaShemitah Maya Videte B'chag HaSukkos. Why are you identifying Sukkos with Shemitah? You can tell me it's the Sukkos after Shemitah. Don't tell me it's the season of the year of Shemitah. It's not the season of the year of Shemitah. Shminisi, this is the 8th year. This is the 8th year. It's Mikei Sheva Shonim. After the Hashanah, you went in to a new year. In fact, it's not Shemitah. It's the first year after Shemitah. If this is called Shemitah, then you have a big problem, because then when you start counting, you have to start counting the year after. This is the 8th year. It's not the Shemitah year. Ella loy marloch. This is where the pasuk is trying to intimate a whole different halacha. Kol tvua sheviya shlish b'shviyis. All grain that matured a third of its full size in the 7th year, lifnei Rosh Hashanah, atanoyeg boy minik shviyis b'shminis. You apply to it the halachas of the 7th year in the 8th year, because since a third of it grew in the 7th year, it's considered 7-year produce, not 8th-year produce. So, for example, in that case, it has to be eaten based on the laws of Shemitah fruits or Shemitah grain, which has special halachas, even though it developed in the 8th year. In other years, it would, of course, have different halachas. If it grew a third in the 2nd year and then you harvested the 3rd year, you would have to give mais according to the 2nd year.
I mean, Suma makes a cheshbon how you got to a third from that. What's it got something to do with a third?
Excellent question.
I'm just saying.
The pasuk doesn't say anything about a third. All we see from the pasuk is that Sukkos could be still considered the previous year. So Chazal struggled. When is Sukkos considered the previous year? Sukkos is a new year. The answer is grain that grew a third in the previous year, we're going to apply it till Sukkos. In other words, we're going to still call Sukkos the previous year. Why? Because it grew a third the previous year. If it didn't grow a third the previous year, then it's considered the new year.
When was Hakel? That was the year after.
Yeah, no, not connected. Yeah.
It was on Yaakov.
Yeah. Yeah. Tvu is Rosh Hashanah, Echad B'Tishrei. Grain works with Echad B'Tishrei just like vegetables. There's no issue. I really don't understand you. You took a pasuk and you invented a whole halacha from this pasuk. V'dilma loy ayel klal. Maybe even if the grain did not begin to ripen the 7th year at all, loy ayel klal. Loy ayel klal means it didn't even begin to enter into a stage of ripeness. Nonetheless, Sukkot is still called Shemitah. You know why? Learn the pasuk literally. The Gemarah Achmana the Torah is teaching us to shamet v'tezel ad chag Sukkos. All the mitzvahs of Shemitah apply till Sukkos. Maybe, this is what the pasuk is telling you. Shemitah doesn't end Rosh Hashanah. Shemitah ends after Sukkos. Shemitah continues, just like we have Tosfos Shabbos, we add Yom Kippur, we add to Shabbos, we add to Yom Tov. You have to add to Shemitah 3 weeks. Maybe. Who says it has to do with grain, growing a third, Trumas Meisters? Say literally, the pasuk calls Sukkos Shemitah. It means Shemitah continues till after Sukkos. That means you're not allowed to plow till after Sukkos. You're not allowed to harvest. All the halachas of Shemitah of the previous year apply to Sukkot. Why are you making a new vart? Lo yisal kadaitach. Says Rabbi, this is not true. The pasuk is not telling us a halacha that Shemitah continues till Sukkot, and even if the grain never produced a third on the seventh year, you'll just say everything applies till Sukkot, all the halachas of Shemitah. Why? Because we have a whole other pasuk, and this pasuk teaches us that grain that grew a third before Rosh Hashanah, that Sukkot is called Moed Shnas HaShemitah. Now here's another very interesting limud. The pasuk says about Sukkot. This is in Parshas Mishpatim. Now we have to read the whole pasuk because it's very precise how they do this pasuk. I'm going to read the pasuk. If you have the pasuk on your side, it's Shmois Perek Chav Gimel pasuk Tazayin. The Torah describes Shavuos and Sukkot, the two Yomim Tovim. V'chag hakatzir bikurei ma'asecha shetizra basad. The holiday of harvest is when you have bikurim. In other words, when your grain starts becoming ripe, which is usually the time of Shavuos. Grain and fruits become ripe. It's the time of harvest. Chag hakatzir. Okay, we're done with that. Now the next Yom Tov. Keywords. V'chag ha'asif. You have the holiday of Asif. Asif means gathering. B'tseis Hashanah, when the year exits. B'aspecha es ma'asecha min hasada. When you gather your work from the field. This is why Sukkot is called Chag HaAsif, the festival of gathering. Usually, people would harvest their grain, fruits, vegetables during spring and summer. They would leave them outside in order to dry and get rid of their moist. Before pending winter and the rain season, they would bring it into their silos, to their homes, to their basements, to their cellars, to their storage places. When was that? During the time of Sukkot, before the rain season. That's called Chag HaAsif, the holiday of gathering. So look how the Torah identified Sukkot. It said Chag HaAsif, it's the holiday of gathering. But Tseis Hashanah, when the year ends, which we understand, it's after the previous year ends. But Aspecha ma'asecha min hasada, when you gathered your work from the field. Zok the Gemarah diksiv Chag HaAsif b'Tseis Hashanah. My Asif, what does Asif mean? Ileima. I guess it means it's a name for Sukkot. Chag HaBab is man Asifa. It's the holiday that arrives during the time of Asifa, when you gather in all the grain that you harvested and you left in the field to dry. Frag the Gemarah doesn't make sense. Haksiv ba'aspecha. A second later, a word, 3 words later, you're going to say ba'aspecha. You're going to say when you gather your work from the field. So why do you have to give me the identical description for Yom Tov Sukkos twice? What would have been wrong if you just said, you have the Chag, B'tseis Hashanah, B'aspecha es ma'asecha. First you have to say it's Chag HaAsif, the holiday of gathering. Why is it the holiday of gathering? B'aspecha. You want to identify the season of Sukkot, just say it's the holiday, B'aspecha. Why do you have to say twice the word Asif? Chag HaAsif and B'aspecha. This is a redundancy. Elamai Asif, Katzir. Chag HaAsif is actually talking about another halacha. Asif here doesn't mean just gathering. It means harvesting the grain and gathering it. So now we have an interesting pasuk, a whole new interpretation. Let's take a look at the pasuk. The Chag HaAsif, the holiday when you harvest and gather grain, is B'tseis Hashanah. It's from the year that left, not from the year that came in. Which holiday am I talking about? Ba'aspecha ma'asecha, the holiday of Sukkot, when you gather all the grain. In other words, we're talking about a new halacha. The Chag HaAsif is talking about the grain that you harvested on Sukkot, so before Sukkot. And you brought it into your house, B'tseis Hashanah. This belongs to the previous year that left, not to the new year. Why not to the new year? Because it started to grow in the previous year. Now you identify when this Yom Tov is. It happens to be Ba'aspecha ma'asecha min hasada, when you gather everything from the field, that which you harvested also before. The rabbis had a principle. It was clear to them. Any grain that you harvest on Sukkot or before Sukkot, biyadua, it's known she'evia shlish lefnei Rosh Hashanah. A third of it grew before Rosh Hashanah. If you harvested it on Sukkot, that means it became fully mature on Sukkot. It grew to its full height on Sukkot. That's why you're harvesting it. If it grew to its full height on Sukkot, let's say Sukkot is 20 days after the beginning of the year, it couldn't have started growing after Tishrei. It's 20 days. They knew for sure it grew a third before Rosh Hashanah. If so, this is the source of it all. This is the source of it all. Very interesting. Because the Pasuk says that B'chag ha'asaf, the holiday when you harvest grain and you bring it in. So now I ask you a question. If I harvest grain on Sukkot, when did it grow to be a third? It had to be before Rosh Hashanah. If I harvested it in Cheshvan, not necessarily. Then you wouldn't say B'tzeis Hashanah. But they knew up to Sukkot, if it's after Sukkot, already could have grown this year. But anything before Sukkot or up to Sukkot, including Sukkot, it had to have a third before Rosh Hashanah to be fully ripe now. And what does the Pasuk say about this harvest? It's B'tzeis Hashanah. It belongs to the year that left, not to the new year. This is the biblical source. That grain that grows a third, that's the year of Trumas and Maisos that it belongs to. That's the source of it. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Zayda. Rabbi Yirmiyah tells Rabbi Zayda. Remember, Rabbi Zayda challenged Rabbi Asi about all of his cheshbonis with Hakel, so he answered him this answer. He gave him this pasuk. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Zayda. Rabbi Yirmiyah tells Rabbi Zayda. You really think the rabbis knew this? They knew exactly the distinction between grain that matured a third to that which is less than a third? To be able to say that grain is not ripe to harvest on Sukkot unless it grew a third before Rosh Hashanah? Really?
After Sukkot, it's like 25 days into the year.
In other words, they could really say this, that if I'm harvesting the grain on Sukkot, it means for sure that it was a third before Rosh Hashanah, and it can't be, it was a little less than that, right? Maybe it was a little less than a third and it was still ready. Yeah? This was their klal. Maybe it was a little more than a third, and then it's ready. They're making a whole din here. And it's a serious din. Because it's Negeah to Trumas, it's Negeah to Maestris, you're not going to be Yotze Truma. It's Negeah which year it is. So they're basically saying it's a third. They really knew this. Amalei Reb Zayda says, Lava minalach. Have I not told you in the past? Loi tapik nafshach lebar mehilchasa. Interesting expression. Don't take your soul out of halacha. What do I mean, don't take your soul out of halacha? Don't start doubting and questioning the shiurim that the Chachamim made. Kol midos Chachamim keinu. All the measurements of the Chachamim work this way. They knew exactly their shiurim. Take an example. Arbayim sa'u toivel. To go to the mikveh, you need 40 sa'ah of water, they said. Biblically, you need 40 sa'ah of water. Let's take the most stringent measurement of the Chazon Ish. I think it would be around 150 gallons, right? 150 liquid gallons. Some say less. Arbayim sa'u toivel. By Arbayim sa'ah chasek kurtav eni yachalit bulbahan. So now I ask you, this 40 sa'ah missing a kurtav. A kurtav is basically a tiny, tiny shear because 40 sa'ah is like this. In each sa'ah you have 24 lugim. A kurtav is 1/64 of a lug. So understand, 40 sa'ah, okay? 40 sa'ah. Each sa'ah has 24 lug, and now you have 40 times 24 lug, and a kurtav is 1/64 of a lug. Which means if you want to make the cheshbon, they make the cheshbon, a kurtav is basically 1 part of 1,536 of a sa'ah. That's what a kurtav is. So now I ask you a question. A little piece is missing of Arbaim Sa'ena Yachalit Bilbahan. Next. Kebeitza. You have food in the volume of an egg. Metame Tumas Oichlin. It could be Metame Tumas Oichlin. If you have food in the volume of an egg that's Tameh, and another food touches it, it also becomes Tameh. If it's less than an egg, Kebeitza Chaser Shumshum. If the egg is missing a Shumshum, a sesame, Eine Metame Tumas Oichlin, it's all over. Not metame. Next, shloisha al shloisha. You have a cloak, a beged, that's 3 handbreadth by 3 handbreadth. Metame midras. It's susceptible to tumas midras. Tumas midras means the tumah of stepping, of treading. You have a zav or a nido or yeledes. 4 people who are sources of tumah because of various flows that come out of their body, and there's a special halacha that what they lay on what they sit on or what they step on, even though they didn't touch it, it becomes tamei. For example, a zav sits on a mattress. There's 10 mattresses under it. There's 10 mattresses. The lowest mattress also becomes tamei. It's called tumas midras, and it's a very serious tumah. It becomes an av hatumah, and it can be metamei a person. It can be metamei other kalim. They become rishon l'tumah. But there's one principle. It has to be something that's royal in midras. It can't be standing. It has to be a chair, a bed, a saddle, something that's made to sit on, or something that's made to lay on. Like a chair, for example, something that's not made to sit on or lay on is not tamei tumas midras. It's tamei by touch. If the zav touches it, it's a different type of tumah. What's the shear of this beged that it's tamei? Shloisha tfachim. So he says shloisha chaser nima achas einam tamei midras. 3 by 3, and it's missing one thread. It's not tamei midras. So you're going to say all these questions. Well, what they decided on egg? Huh? It's not tamei midras. So Rashi says, "Kol midoisam kanchu mitzum tzameis." This is how their midas work. So therefore, what he's telling him is, you're going to start telling me that what? A third? Really? They knew a third? That if you're harvesting it on Sukkot, it grew a third? Maybe it was less than a third? Maybe it was more than a third? So the Bzeirah says, they knew all these shiurim. They said a beitza, they meant a beitza. That's tumas oichlam. You could start saying, could have been a drop less than a beitza.
They didn't set it up. They defined what the Torah meant.
Yeah, they defined what the Torah meant. So therefore, here too, it was established that this is the shear. They said if it was ripe on Sukkot, it means it grew a shlish before Rosh Hashanah. If it grew a shlish before Rosh Hashanah, from here we have a general principle that all grain that grows a third, that year is the year when you have to connect it in terms of trumas and meisters. That's the year it belongs to.
Wasn't grain cut Pesach time?
It started to develop. It starts developing Pesach time. Chaga Aviv. Spring, yeah.
And the Omer you think because you're cutting your
Barley, yeah, barley. Barley's early. Barley's first. But let's say, well, yeah, but of course wheat also grows in the spring. Who's downing that? No, there's later. Yeah, there could be 3.
3 in a year, yeah.
There could be.
Most fruits have just one harvest.
He's not saying that it doesn't grow in the spring. If it grows in the spring and you cut it in the spring, we don't have a question about which year. Our problem is when there's a split of 2 years. Regularly, we don't have this problem.
Because most fruits have their times when they harvest.
Right. Right, but chitim you can have later also. Yeah. If not, it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, sure, that's why.
It wouldn't be an issue.
This class is brought to you by the yeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.